Chapter 2945. After getting Ji Tianxing's guarantee, Ning Xiyuan was very excited. In a short 5 days, the Ning clan bloodline's calamity could be solved? This was too inconceivable. For a moment, Ning Xiyuan felt like she was in a dream. She couldn't believe it. Young Master Tianxing, although I know you are extraordinary and must be a talented person, your words are too exaggerated. But what you said is really too exaggerated. I simply can't believe it. Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. It's just 5 days. Wait for my news at ease." Ning Xiyuan thought it was right. Anyway, it only needed 5 days. It would pass very quickly. Then she would wait patiently. Perhaps he could really create a miracle? Therefore, after bowing to Ji Tianxing and thanking him, she left the secret room with a heart full of joy. Looking at her departing figure, Ji Tianxing vaguely felt that something was wrong. He wanted to call out to her, but she left briskly and soon disappeared. Ji Tianxing could only give up. He got up and went to the study. He used a pen and paper to write down hundreds of medicinal herbs and divine materials. He already had an answer in his heart on how to treat Ning Xiyuan. As long as he gathered these hundreds of materials, he could refine 6 divine pills and concoct 12 sets of medicine. At that time, Ning Xiyuan would take the divine pills and medicine on time. Together with a secret bloodline cultivation technique, she could completely solve the calamity. After writing down the list of materials, Ji Tianxing handed the paper to the guard at the door and instructed, "Go to the residence's storeroom according to this list and get 1 set of each material." The guard only glanced at the list and revealed a shocked expression. He hesitated for a moment before saying carefully, "Young Master Tianxing, please forgive me for being rude and speaking out of turn. There are close to 100 materials on your list. They are all monarch-level divine materials and materials. They are very valuable. My words carry little weight. I'm only afraid that the storeroom manager won't be willing to give it to me." Ji Tianxing nodded and instructed, "Then tell them that these are the things that Miss Ning wants. If they don't believe me, they can ask Miss Ning themselves." Only then was the guard relieved. He hurriedly bowed and said, "Yes, young master." After saying that, the guard carefully took the list and went into the warehouse. Next, as long as he gathered the materials, Ji Tianxing would be able to refine the divine pill. He turned his head to look out the window and discovered that it was already late at night. It was already 6:45. In another quarter of an hour, it would be 9 o'clock. If that idiot who sent me the secret letter really went to Maplewood's villa outside the city, then just wait there obediently. Ji Tianxing murmured to himself as his lips curled into a mocking sneer. Outside Tianxue County, on the outskirts of the eastern part of the city, for 1,000 miles away from the city gate, there was a beautiful mountain range. Normally, the mountains and rivers were shrouded in clouds and mist. There were many clear streams, waterfalls, and emerald forests in the mountains. There were also hundreds of flowers, birds, and beasts. The divine power of heaven and earth was very abundant. There was a lone peak that was thousands of feet tall, and it was the most special among the mountains and rivers. On this lone peak, there was a maple forest of different heights. When the fire maple trees bloomed, the entire mountain range was covered in a bright red color. It was exceptionally gorgeous. On the peak of the mountain, there was a manor that occupied 100 square meters. It was called Maplewood's Villa. This villa had a history of thousands of years. It was very ancient and elegant. It was extraordinarily unique. In the villa, there were palaces, pavilions, gardens, and lakes. Everywhere was richly ornamented and decorated with gold and jade. 100 years ago, this villa was the property of an aristocratic family in the city. Those old nobles would often bring their families and servants to the manor for leisure and temporary stay. However, in recent decades, this villa seemed to have changed owners. Normally, there was only a black-clothed old man guarding the gate of the villa. 2 deaf and mute hunchback servants were in charge of cleaning up the dust and fallen leaves in the villa. Other than that, no one was active all year round. At this moment, the Maplewoods Villa, which was always dark, was unexpectedly lit up with a warm light. The black-clothed old man was still sitting on the rockery at the gate. He seemed to be taking a nap, But in fact, his divine sense covered thousands of miles and was constantly monitoring the eastern city gate of Tianxia County. If someone came out of the city gate, he would be the first to know. Inside the villa, in the spacious and clean hall, there were dozens of gemstone lamps. The dazzling lights illuminated the hall, making it look resplendent. Crown Prince Duanmu reclined on the throne at the head of the table. Two young and beautiful maids were nestled beside the throne and massaging his shoulders and legs. The ardent tiger servant stood beside the throne and stared at his feet like a statue. In front of the throne, there was a white jade table with fine wine and divine fruits on it. There was also a golden hourglass. Crown Prince Duanmu was enjoying the service of the maids while looking at the hourglass from time to time. When the sand in the hourglass ran out, it was already 2 hours. Soon, there was only less than half of the sand left in the hourglass. The villa was still very quiet. Crown Prince Duanmu was somewhat impatient. He frowned and asked, "Hulai, ask Old Black if that kid has come." Hulai said yes, and then sent a message to the black-clothed old man who was napping on the rockery at the gate. The black-clothed old man immediately replied, "He has not appeared." Hulai could only report the truth. Crown Prince Duanmu frowned fiercely and cursed with contempt. Wasn't that kid very arrogant before? Why is he acting like a coward tonight? What a coward! He doesn't dare to come at all. Hulai hesitated for a moment and advised in a low voice, "Crown Prince, you only mentioned Maplewood's villa in the secret letter and did not reveal your identity. Although that kid is arrogant, he is very cautious and most likely won't come." Crown Prince Duanmu frowned and sneered. "Then you mean that I should have left my signature in the secret letter? You idiot! Do you want to kill me? If that brat takes the secret letter to Ning Qinggang and spouts nonsense to slander this heir, wouldn't this heir's reputation be tarnished?" Hulai quickly lowered his head and apologized. "Please calm down, Crown Prince. This subordinate has overstepped." Then the two fell into silence. Time passed silently. After 2 hours, the sand in the hourglass ran out. Hulai tactfully took 2 steps forward and turned the hourglass over to continue counting. However, Crown Prince Duanmu waited for another 4 hours, but he did not see Ji Tianxing come. When dawn arrived, his patience finally ran out, and he began to curse furiously. "Damn that little bastard. He really didn't dare to come and made me wait in vain. He won't come tonight. Let's go back." Crown Prince Duanmu got up angrily and walked out of the hall. 2 maids knelt on the ground and respectfully sent him off. Hulai quickly followed Crown Prince Duanmu and carefully comforted him. As for the 2 consecrators, Qing Shan and Lu Shui, they were still in the manor's secret room and would not appear for the time being. When the sky was slightly bright, Crown Prince Duanmu and Hulai quietly returned to the Ning residence. As soon as the 2 returned to the Bailon courtyard, a trusted guard asked to see Hulai with a strange expression and reported a piece of news. After Hulai heard it, he was dumbstruck and his expression was extremely ugly. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead, and he did not know how to report it to the Crown Prince. "This is simply, the sky is falling down. We're dead. The Crown Prince will definitely go crazy." End of chapter. Chapter 2946. When he thought of Duanmu heir's possible reaction, Hulai felt his scalp go numb. He took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He waved his hand, indicating for the guard to withdraw. Then, he walked towards Duanmu heir's bedroom with a solemn and stirring heart. Duanmu heir was throwing a tantrum in the bedroom. He smashed a few pots of flowers and flipped a table. Seeing Hulai enter the room with a grief-stricken expression, he scolded in a deep voice. "What's with that expression? Are your parents dead? If you have something to say it quickly. Don't get in the way in front of me." Hulai shrunk his neck from the scolding and buried his head in his chest. He didn't dare to look directly at Duanmu heir. After hesitating for a moment, he steeled his heart and carefully reporting to heir, "Something happened last night. This subordinate feels that it is necessary to report to you. If you have something to say it quickly." Duanmu heir impatiently scolded. Hulai's mouth twitched. He lowered his voice and said, "Last night, our spies and the estate's guards all saw Tianxing go to Miss Ning's residence. They stayed in Miss Ning's boudoir for half an incense stick's time before returning to Pine Tree Courtyard. After entering Pine Tree Courtyard, they dismissed the maids and guards and entered a secret room. Miss Ning only came out of the secret room after an hour. At that time, the Pine Tree Courtyard and the estate's guards, as well as our spies, all saw Miss Ning's appearance. At this point, Hu Lai's heart trembled, and he didn't dare to continue speaking. Duanmu Air's breathing was rapid. His eyes were red, and his chest was rising and falling rapidly. His anger was about to explode. However, he still suppressed his anger and coldly shouted in a low voice, "Speak. Continue. What happened to Ning Siyuan?" Hu Lai braced himself and said, "Many people saw that Miss Ning's clothes were disheveled, her hair was disheveled, and her face was as red as a peach blossom. Moreover, there were still some traces of sweat on her forehead and cheeks. The estate's guards and maids were all secretly discussing this matter. When the sun rises, I'm afraid the entire Ning residence will know. Those servants all believe that the boy is about to become the Ning family's son-in-law." Hu Lai used up all his courage and strength to finish his words. He was well aware of how much this news affected the crown prince. Even if the crown prince went crazy on the spot and tore down the entire White Orchid courtyard, he would feel that it was only natural. But he didn't expect it. The room was silent. Duanmu crown prince remained silent and didn't get angry. It was as if he had been petrified. His eyes were red as he stood rooted to the ground. He stared blankly at the door, and his entire body was trembling. After a long while, he seemed to come back to his senses. Clear tears gushed out from his eyes, and blood flowed from the corners of his mouth. Soon after, he began to wail loudly. Ning Siyuan, you bitch. To think that I loved you so much that I would never regret being infatuated with you, even to the point of death. But you humiliated me like this, belittled me, and even made me a cuckold. Which part of that kid is like me? You actually disregarded your pride and dignity and took the initiative to climb into his bed and offer yourself to him? Why? Why was that? Heavens, why are you so unfair? Duanmu Crown Prince couldn't take this huge blow. His legs gave way, and he knelt on the ground, crying and wailing. Fortunately, the room was protected by a divine array. It was soundproof and could prevent divine sense from probing. Otherwise, with Duanmu Crown Prince crying so heartbroken, people 10 miles away would have heard it. Seeing the Crown Prince so heartbroken, Hu Lai was very sympathetic and pitiful. He originally wanted to persuade the Crown Prince to not be too sad. Perhaps things weren't as you thought. However, many people saw that when Miss Ning left Pine Courtyard, her face was still flushed, sweaty, and her clothes were disheveled. Even an idiot would know what she did with Tianxing in the secret room. If Hu Lai went against his will to persuade Duanmu Crown Prince, he felt that he would be struck by lightning. Seeing Duanmu Crown Prince break down, he was helpless and could only sigh deeply. 15 minutes later, Duanmu Crown Prince finished venting and gradually calmed down. He no longer wailed and silently climbed up to sit on the edge of the bed. He slowly unsheathed his gleaming sword and stared at the blade with a malicious gaze. His expression was as cold as ice. Second Imperial Uncle is right. Women are the biggest obstacle to a man's ambition. From today onwards, I will sever all ties with Ning Siyuan and have nothing to do with him. If I continue to be infatuated with her, I will end up like this strand of hair. Duanmu Crown Prince's voice was cold and emotionless as he muttered. He waved the sword in his hand and cut off a strand of hair. Flames emerged from his palm and burned the hair to ashes. Tonight, no matter what, I will kill him. In this world, if I exist, there will be no him. If he exists, there will be no me. Duanmu Crown Prince seemed to be making an oath. His tone was especially solemn and respectful as he muttered to himself. The sky brightened and the sun rose. The Ning residence was as peaceful as usual. However, under the calm surface, there was a surging undercurrent. Since last night, a shocking piece of news had spread throughout the residence. Eldest Miss went to Pine Yard and entered a secret room with Sir Tianxing. They stayed there for more than an hour. When she left Pine Yard, eldest Miss' clothes were disheveled, her face was flushed, and her hair and face were stained with sweat. She seemed to be very excited and happy. This news first spread among the guards and maids. After a few rounds of spreading and processing, it became more and more pink and exaggerated. When the news finally spread, it became, eldest Miss' legs were so sore that she seemed to have no strength to walk. It really made one's imagination run wild. As a result, the servants of the Ning residence all felt that eldest Miss had found her true love. It wouldn't be long before Sir Tianxing became the son-in-law of the Ning family. However, the Ning family descendants were somewhat worried. If Sir Tianxing suddenly appeared and became the son-in-law of the Ning family, the family structure would be shaken. At that time, it was inevitable that many people's interests would be damaged. Therefore, many Ning family descendants and relatives quietly gathered together to discuss how to deal with it. When the news reached Ning Qinggang's ears, it was already 10 o'clock in the morning. Ning Qinggang, who was dealing with official business, was also dumbfounded on the spot. Then he was so angry that he blew his beard and glared, smashing the table with one slap and flying into a rage. Bastards! They're absolutely bastards. Those guards and maids are really audacious and have no regard for the family rules. No matter how the master acts, the servants are not allowed to interfere. Steward, immediately take people to investigate the source of the news. Whoever spread the news, immediately arrest them and wait to be executed. Whoever added fuel to the fire and wantonly spread it, also arrest them and hand them over to the torture chamber to be punished severely, and then expel them from the Ning residence. Ning Qinggang, who had always been dignified, was so angry for the first time in 10 years. The steward was also frightened. He said yes and hurried to carry out the order. When the study was quiet and Ning Qinggang was alone, he looked helpless and helpless. He couldn't help but rub his eyebrows. Chapter 29:47. Someone, tell young Master Tianxing to come see me. Ning Qinggang thought for a while before giving the order to the guard outside the door. The young guard obeyed and went to Pine Garden. Ning Qinggang sat alone in the study, looking out the window with a complicated expression. He was restless. Of course, he was furious after such a thing happened. But what made him angry was the servants gossiping. As for Ning Siyuan, he didn't have much intention to blame him. Ning Siyuan was his only daughter whom he doted on the most, as well as the apple of his eye. She was the most outstanding genius of this generation of Ning family members. Because of his teachings, Ning Siyuan was very independent and opinionated. She wasn't delicate like other girls and was full of heroic spirit. However, Ning Siyuan's personality was a bit too strong. Ning Qinggang was helpless about this. As for Ji Tianxing, Ning Qinggang didn't understand. When they met yesterday, Ji Tianxing said that he yearned for freedom and would leave the Ning mansion soon. But what happened? Last night, he went into the secret room with Ning Siyuan and did that thing. As Ning Siyuan's father, Ning Qinggang certainly blamed Ji Tianxing. You are indeed a genius. You're also very scheming and resourceful. If you and Siyuan were truly in love and were willing to stay in the Ning family, I would be happy to help you. But you don't want to stay in the Ning family and are about to leave. Why do you want to harm my daughter? Isn't this shaming the Ning family? When the Qi family finds out about this, how will I explain it to them? How will my daughter Siyuan face people in the future? Bastard, what are you trying to do? The more Ning Qinggang thought about it, the angrier he became. He couldn't help but clench his fists. At this time, the guard rushed back to report the news. Master, young Master Tianxing is in seclusion in the secret room. Before he went into seclusion, he ordered that no one is to disturb him. Ning Qinggang frowned and sneered with anger. Seclusion? I think he's hiding because he's guilty, right? The young guard remained silent, not daring to answer. After Ning Qinggang calmed down, he ordered, go find eldest Miss and have her come to see me in the study. The young guard acknowledged the order and turned to leave. This time, it went rather smoothly. After all, Ning Siyuan was only resting in her boudoir and had nothing to do. When she heard the guard's message, she immediately rushed over. When she entered the study, she saw Ning Qinggong's complicated expression. She was a little puzzled and asked, "Father, are you looking for me? Judging from your frown and gloomy appearance, are you having trouble with your business?" Ning Qinggang frowned and said coldly in a dignified tone, "Don't change the subject. Don't you know why father is looking for you?" Ning Siyuan was a little confused. He didn't know why his father was angry. She quickly picked up the teapot and poured a cup of tea for her father. She comforted him, "Father, no matter what happened, please calm down and drink some tea." Ning Qinggang was so angry that he wanted to laugh. He asked, "Siyuan, are you pretending to be confused, or are you really in the dark? Do you know that after you went to Pine Tree Yard last night, the whole mansion spread the news that you and that brat Tianqing?" As her father, he definitely wouldn't say anything else. He couldn't say that her clothes were disheveled and her face was flushed. Ning Siyuan froze for a moment and immediately understood. "Oh, so it's about that." She nodded with a smile on her face and said excitedly, "Father, I was just about to tell you about this. Last night, I did go to Pine Tree Yard and did something very important with young Master Tianqing in the secret room. It's related to the fate of the Ning family's descendants. You definitely won't be able to guess what it is." Ning Siyuan's heart was filled with joy and anticipation, and his expression was overflowing. Ning Qinggang almost vomited blood when he heard this. He couldn't help but roll his eyes. "You and that brat are a perfect match. You were alone in the secret room for more than an hour. How could I not know what you did? If I didn't know, how could I have let your mother be pregnant with you?" Ning Siyuan stilled. Her face was full of question marks, and she was a bit confused. However, she was a smart person and immediately reacted. She stomped her feet in embarrassment and anger. "Father, what nonsense are you talking about?" Ning Qinggang held his forehead helplessly and said with a dignified expression, "All right, since you're pretending to be confused, then I'll give up this old face and tell you the truth. Let me ask you, what did you and Tianqing do in the secret room last night?" Ning Siyuan answered without hesitation, "Young Master Tianqing has a way to cure the calamity in my bloodline. He was checking my bloodline in the secret room." "Nonsense. All the Ning family members know the solution to Heavenly Slayer." Ning Qinggang exclaimed in exasperation. "Is this why you're meeting in the secret room?" Before Ning Siyuan could explain, he said earnestly, "Siyuan, I know you don't want to marry into the Qi family, and you don't like Qi Huangji. I understand your thoughts and didn't force you. However, you should know that this isn't the way to solve the problem. Even if you like Tianqing and want to be with him and have him solve the calamity for you, you still have a marriage contract. But you have an engagement after all, so you can't be impatient. We have to find a suitable opportunity to communicate with the Qi family and obtain their understanding before we can break off the engagement. At that time, you and Tianqing can get married in a proper way. Moreover, after you and Tianqing's bloodline intertwined, you would rather rest for one more night than show up in a hurry. At the very least, you should tidy up your clothes and calm down before leaving Pine Garden. But now, your appearance was seen by the guards and maids. Now that the news has spread in the estate, everyone knows that you and Tianqing have slept together. Even if I order the people who spread the news to be killed, it won't stop the public from gossiping. Your reckless actions this time will bring shame to the Ning family." Ning Qinggang said the words in his heart in one breath. It could be said that he was heartbroken. Ning Siyuan froze in place, completely dumbfounded. Her expression was very interesting. After being stunned for a long time, she finally came back to her senses and her face was as cold as frost. "Father, where did these rumors come from? They're slandering me and young Master Tianqing. How could even you be deceived? There's nothing between me and young Master Tianqing. Last night in the secret room, he only helped me check my bloodline. We didn't even touch skin to skin, so how could we do such a thing?" In her grief and indignation, Ning Siyuan didn't hide her words and directly told the truth. This time, it was Ning Qinggong's turn to be stunned. Siyuan, is what you're saying true?" Ning Siyuan said resolutely. "It's absolutely true. Young Master Tianqing is a divine doctor, and he's already found the cause of calamity. He promised me that he'll refine a divine pill within 5 days and help me deal with calamity. If the experiment succeeds, the Ning family descendants won't be troubled by calamity in the future. So it's like that. The haze in Ning Qinggong's heart dissipated, and he revealed surprise and joy. Ning Siyuan said with a cold expression, "Young Master Tianqing helped us with good intentions. How can we let him take the blame and have his reputation ruined by rumors? Father, you must control the rumors and eliminate them in the shortest time possible." End of chapter. Chapter 2948. The truth had been revealed. Ning Qinggang was relieved of a great burden. At the same time, he was pleasantly surprised and in disbelief. Siyuan, Father knows that young Master Tianqing is strong and skilled, but he is still young. How could he have the time and energy to learn medicine? He can't be a genius doctor. For thousands of years, the Ning family ancestors have found countless geniuses, but none of them could find the cause. Even peak divine Lord realm experts that the Ning family ancestors were fortunate enough to encounter could not cure Heavenly Slayer. Our ancestors guessed that only divine king realm experts had the ability to cure it. No matter how talented young Master Tianqing is, he cannot compare to a divine king. Ning Siyuan's reaction was calm. Her anger had not yet subsided. Before entering the study, Ning Qinggang was very angry, but she was full of anticipation and joy. Now, it was the other way around. She said calmly, "Young Master Tianqing said that he had cured several similar bloodline problems. In comparison, the Ning family's Heavenly Slayer bloodline is not a problem." Ning Qinggang nodded slightly and said emotionally, "No matter what, we will see the result in 5 days. Since young Master Tianqing is so confident, then I would rather believe him. If he can really cure Heavenly Slayer, then he will be the great benefactor of the Ning family, the lucky star the heavens have given to the Ning family. At that time, how will I repay him?" Ning Siyuan glanced at him and said coldly, "Let's not talk about repaying the benefactor. At least, we can't let him take the blame and be slandered behind his back." Ning Qinggang was a bit embarrassed and said with an embarrassed smile, "Don't worry, Father has already sent people to investigate. Moreover, Father will be able to control the rumors and eliminate them today." Ning Siyuan was relieved and said, "Last night, young Master Tianqing sent people to the storehouse to take many herbs. He is in seclusion to refine medicine. Take advantage of the fact that he has not come out of seclusion and does not know about the rumors. Solve it as soon as possible." Ning Qinggang promised again that he could solve it today. So, Ning Siyuan bid farewell and left the study. Ning Qinggang didn't waste any time and immediately ordered the Ning clan to gather in the main hall for a discussion. The rumors had already spread, and the Ning family members and elders all believed it to be true. He had to hold a meeting to clarify the matter and clear up the misunderstanding. After doing this, he still had to deal with the servants who started and spread the rumors. He had already sealed the rumors and information. In short, before Ji Tianqing comes out of seclusion, he must eliminate all the rumors and slanders. Qingsong Courtyard, Ji Tianqing's residence. In the secret chamber, a black divine pagoda stood on the ground. Ji Tianqing was currently in the distorted space-time of the divine pagoda, concentrating on concocting divine pills. The divine pills and elixirs he wanted to refine were all high-grade monarch-grade divine medicines. Ordinary divine Lord Realm alchemists needed a year before they could refine it. But he was different. Not only did he have the support of the 9 Heavens Divine Cauldron, but he also had the experience of a God King. Therefore, he only needed 3 months to complete it. Even if there was an accident during the refining process and the refinement failed, it would still be fine. He could still complete it within half a year at most. Half a year in the distorted space-time was only 3 or 4 days in the outside world. That was why he boasted to Ning Siyuan that he would finish it within 5 days. The 9th Heaven Divine Cauldron floated in the distorted space-time and expanded to 1,000 feet tall, emitting 5-color divine light. The Divine Cauldron was operating, and the 9th Heaven Divine Fire was burning inside. Ji Tianqing had already put dozens of sets of herbs into the Divine Cauldron. Now he was sitting cross-legged in the space-time, forming seals with both hands and constantly releasing divine power to control the divine cauldron to refine the pills. Time passed silently. He was completely focused, and the refining process was meticulous without any mistakes. After all, this was the highest grade divine pill he had personally refined after his rebirth. A high-grade monarch-grade divine pill was a treasure worth tens of millions of divine stones. If the effect was special, the price could be raised several times, reaching hundreds of millions of divine stones per pill. The 6 divine pills he was refining this time were called ancient god blood refining pills. The 12 sets of elixirs to be made were called divine heart purifying soup. This was a divine medicine that targeted the Ning clan bloodline and had a unique effect. Ji Tianqing knew what was going on with Ning Siyuan's divine death. It was actually not complicated. Before the Ning clan ancestor obtained the Heaven's Fury ape god bloodline, he had refined another special bloodline. That special bloodline was golden in color and contained a special fragrance. It should be the bloodline of some ancient race. This bloodline was the same as the Heaven's Fury ape god bloodline. They were both god-king bloodlines. In the Boundless Heaven continent, this was considered the bloodline of a top-notch expert. Unfortunately, the golden bloodline of the ancient race was rather thin, and its power was not obvious. The Heaven's Fury ape god bloodline allowed the Ning clan ancestor's aptitude to increase and his strength to increase by leaps and bounds. As the Ning clan ancestor continued to cultivate, the Heaven's Fury ape god bloodline became purer and purer, and the ancient race bloodline was constantly suppressed. A few thousand years had passed. The Ning clan disciples only knew that they had the Heaven's Fury ape god bloodline, but they did not know about the existence of another ancient bloodline. That ancient race bloodline was also at the God King level and could not be erased. Hence, the two bloodlines had a conflict, producing Heavenly Slayer. It caused the Ning clan disciples to be unable to break through to the Divine Lord realm. They even had their bloodline boil and burn, dying on the spot. The problem was that simple. But the crux was that Divine Lord realm powerhouses could not tell it all. Divine Lord powerhouses could not discover the ancient bloodline and also could not see the bloodline grade, let alone know how to resolve it. Hence, the Ning clan invited countless divine doctors one after another and found many Divine Lord powerhouses, but it was all to no avail. Even a peak Divine Lord would be helpless against it. Unless a God King came personally, they could discover the problem and resolve it. However, the entire Great Yin Empire did not have a God King. In the vast North Heaven region, there should be God King powerhouses existing. But that kind of realm powerhouse was not what the Ning clan could come into contact with. Even the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom did not have the qualifications to come into contact with them. It was precisely because of this reason that the Ning clan bloodline's Heavenly Slayer became an incurable disease. Fortunately, the Ning clan encountered Ji Tianqing. This human race Divine Lord of mysterious origins was precisely a former God King powerhouse. Furthermore, he was the most powerful peak God King. Even though his cultivation realm had not recovered to the God King level, his experience were still there. However, with his experience, knowledge, he was able to see some clues with his God's eye mystic art. As the saying went, those who knew it would not find it difficult, but those who did not know it would not. To a Divine Lord, Heavenly Slayer was an incurable disease. To a God King, it was just a conflict and rejection caused by the mixing of two king-level bloodlines. As long as he consumed divine pills and medicine to recuperate and cultivated the ancient god blood refinement art, he could remove the ancient race bloodline. There would be no problem if he only retained the Heaven's Fury divine ape bloodline. Moreover, Ning Siyuan's bloodline would be even purer. His talent and potential would be further stimulated, and he would soon break through to become a Divine Lord. His future achievements would be limitless. To Ji Tianqing, this was just a small matter. But to the Ning clan, it was a change of fate that would benefit the future generations. It was a great gift. Chapter 2949. To Ji Tianqing's relief, the refining process went smoothly. In just 3 months, 6 ancient god blood refining elixirs and 12 sets of medicine were all refined. After the elixirs came out of the furnace, they shone brightly and surged with divine power. It was indeed a monarch-level high-grade divine elixir with extraordinary effects. After 1,000 years, this is my first time refining a monarch-level divine elixir without any accidents. At least I didn't forget my refining experience. Ji Tianxing put away the 9th heaven divine cauldron with satisfaction, took the 6 divine elixirs and 12 sets of medicine, and left the tower. 3 months passed in the distorted space, but only 2 days passed in the outside world. Ji Tianxing walked out of the secret room and said to the guard at the door, "Go and inform Miss Ning that the elixirs have been refined and ask her to come see me. By the way, this matter must be kept secret. Don't let anyone know for the time being." The silver-armored guard hesitated for a moment, then lowered his voice and said, "Please forgive me, young Master Tianxing, but I dare not send a message." Ji Tianxing frowned. "Why?" The silver-armored guard explained in a low voice, "The Patriarch has ordered that Miss is not allowed to come to Pine Tree Courtyard for 5 days. Why?" Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows, vaguely feeling that something was wrong. The silver-armored guard bowed with some fear and said, "Forgive me, young Master Tianxing, but I don't know." Ji Tianxing looked at him with sharp eyes and asked in a dignified tone, "You don't know, or you don't dare to say it?" "This." The silver-armored guard didn't know how to answer. Ji Tianxing was even more sure that there was a problem, so he said in a gentle tone, "What is the reason? Just tell me. I will keep a secret for you. Even if the Patriarch blames me, I will bear the responsibility and will not involve you." After getting his guarantee, the silver-armored guard was relieved and his heart calmed down a lot. The cause of this matter was that you and Miss went into the secret room last time and stayed for a long time before coming out. When Miss left Pine Tree Courtyard, her clothes were untidy, her hair was messy, and her face was a little rosy. Several guards and maids in the courtyard saw it and talked about it in secret, thinking that you and Miss later on. The news spread throughout the residence, and everyone knew about it. Not only were the servants secretly discussing this matter, but even the disciples of the clan were also discussing this matter. When the family head heard about this, he was furious and sent someone to look for you. But since you are in seclusion, this matter can be dropped. Later on, when the head of the family found out the truth, he gave the order to severely punish the people who started and spread the rumors. The 4 guards and maidservants who had spread the rumors were all punished and killed in public. The dozen or so servants and maids who spread the rumor were also severely punished and expelled from the Ning Mansion. After the Patriarch announced the truth, he gave an order. If anyone dares to discuss this matter or leak the news again, they will be severely punished. The silver-armored guard was also very honest. He told Ji Tianxing the whole story in detail. This was also because of Ji Tianxing's noble status, mysterious background, and kind personality. The silver-armored guard was filled with respect. He only dared to reveal everything after obtaining the other party's guarantee. If it were anyone else, the silver-armored guard wouldn't have dared to speak so bluntly. "I see." Ji Tianxing suddenly understood, but he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When she left the Pine Tree Courtyard, I felt that something was wrong and wanted to remind her. I didn't expect that it would cause a misunderstanding. Fortunately, the head of the Ning family asked the truth in time. Otherwise, even if I jumped into the sea, I wouldn't be able to clear my name. I would be a scapegoat for no reason. The silver-armored guard saw that he wasn't angry and didn't have any intention of flaring up. He couldn't help but feel relieved. At the same time, he admired him even more. After hesitating for a moment, the silver-armored guard whispered, "Young master, this subordinate will say something overstepping my boundaries. The feelings that the head of the family and the eldest miss have for you, we as servants have seen it." Even though this was just a misunderstanding, Lin Fan had no idea what was going on. But in everyone's mind, you and the eldest miss are a perfect match. A talented man and a beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. Without waiting for him to finish, Ji Tianxing glared at him. "Shut up. Is this something you should worry about?" The silver-armored guard hurriedly shut his mouth and stood respectfully in wait. Ji Tianxing waved his hand, indicating for him to withdraw. He didn't let him send a message. In any case, the pine tree courtyard was only 1,000 feet away from Ning Siyuan's residence. He simply released his divine sense and found Ning Siyuan in her boudoir. He directly transmitted his voice to her. The pill has been refined. You can come over and take it. However, you better come over quietly. Don't let anyone find out. Ning Siyuan was resting in her boudoir. Her big blue eyes were looking at the sky outside the window. She was in a daze. No one knew what she was thinking. Ji Tianxing's voice suddenly sounded in her mind, giving her a fright. Soon after, she came back to her senses and murmured with surprise. It hasn't even been 3 days, and he's already refined the pill? Isn't this too fast? Could it be fake medicine? Although she said this, she was still very happy. She was very excited and expectant. She immediately got out of bed and called for a maid to help her dress up. Her personal maid was secretly surprised. The eldest miss had always been valiant and rarely dressed up. What happened today? Could it be that she was going to attend a banquet? Ning Siyuan didn't say anything, so the maid didn't dare to ask. Soon after, Ning Siyuan put on her exquisite makeup and left her boudoir in an invisible state. She rushed to the pine tree courtyard. Even though it was evening, there were many people in the residence, and it was quite lively. However, she concealed her figure and presence. No one discovered her, and she entered the pine tree courtyard. Only when she entered the secret room and saw Ji Tianxing did she remove her invisible state. Young Master Tianxing, you've refined the pill so quickly? Ning Siyuan looked at him with bright eyes. She was overflowing with joy. Ji Tianxing nodded slightly. He took out a dazzling golden pill and a multicolored ball of light and handed them to her. This is the ancient god blood refining pill and the divine heart purifying soup. After you take it, I'll teach you the ancient god blood refining art. Cultivate it for 36 cycles, and you'll see initial results. Ning Siyuan was surprised. She took the golden pill and looked at it carefully. She saw that the pill veins were fine and contained the laws of the divine Tao. The golden light was dazzling and the divine power was surging. She was even more surprised. She exclaimed in disbelief, "This is a monarch-level high-grade divine pill? Are you a high-level divine lord?" Ji Tianxing just kept smiling and didn't say anything. It was common knowledge in the divine world that only high-level divine lords could refine high-grade monarch-level divine pills. If Ning Siyuan knew that he was only a low-level divine lord, who knew how shocked she would be? Ning Siyuan held the multicolored ball of light and looked at it carefully. She saw that the multicolored ball of light was wrapped in a purplish-red medicinal soup. It was like a grape wine. Ning Siyuan could clearly feel that there were dozens of medicinal herbs in the medicinal soup. It emitted a special power and aura. Although she hadn't taken it yet, she dispelled her previous doubts when she saw this divine pill and medicine. She was full of confidence in Ji Tianxing. Maybe he really has shocking medical skills. It's just that he didn't show it to others before. Since he's so confident, this medicine is most likely effective. With this thought in mind, she didn't hesitate to take the divine pill and medicine, then sat down on the jade bed to meditate. Chapter 2950. Ji Tianxing waved his right hand and shot a ball of 5-color divine light into Ning Siyuan's forehead. The divine light contained the secret manual of the ancient god blood refinement art. In order to make it easier for Ning Siyuan to cultivate directly, Ji Tianxing added detailed annotations inside to make it easier to understand. Ning Siyuan was also smart. After receiving that ball of divine light, she grasped the essentials of the ancient god blood refinement art and started cultivating. Ji Tianxing watched from the side to prevent any mishaps from happening to her. The result was out of his expectations. Ning Siyuan's cultivation was very smooth. In a short 2 hours, she understood the essentials of the art and smoothly circulated one cycle. Next, she accelerated her circulation and repeatedly cultivated the ancient god blood refinement art. According to Ji Tianxing, as long as she circulated 36 cycles, she would see initial results. but she already felt that the divine pills and medicines she took were taking effect in her body. This made her confidence double, and her trust in Ji Tianxing also gradually deepened. She was looking forward to what kind of scene it would be to completely resolve Heavenly Slayer after taking 6 divine pills and 12 medicines. Time passed quickly. Unknowingly, a night passed. Ning Siyuan's circulation speed became faster and faster. In the beginning, it took 2 hours to circulate 1 cycle. Then, it took 1 hour to circulate 1 cycle. Now, it only took 30 minutes to complete 1 cycle. Such speed shocked Ji Tianxing, and he found it hard to believe. Previously, it was me who underestimated the talents of the world. I didn't expect that a genius like Ning Siyuan could also appear in the small blood flame divine kingdom. The heavenly rage divine Ape's king-class bloodline indeed made the Ning family's descendants outstanding and terrifying. If she wasn't troubled by Heavenly Slayer, she probably would have broken through to the Divine Lord realm long ago and be on par with my current strength, right? Seeing that Ning Siyuan's circulation was stable and there wouldn't be any mistakes, Ji Tianxing sat at the side and meditated to adjust his breath. After waiting for another day, Ning Siyuan successfully circulated 36 cycles and ended her cultivation. When she opened her eyes, her face was full of joy. She couldn't hold back the excitement in her heart and muttered to herself, "It worked. The burning pain in my blood has indeed lessened by a lot." Heavenly Slayer's existence caused her bloodline to burn like it was on fire every time she cultivated or used a divine art. Even in the face of a life and death crisis, she couldn't use 100% of her power. But now, that threat had been eliminated. How could she not be excited by such an immediate effect? Ji Tianxing also opened his eyes and used his God's mystic technique to observe her for a while. Then, he smiled and nodded. Her symptoms are indeed much better. My efforts were not in vain. As he spoke, he took out another 5 divine pills and 11 medicinal pellets and presented them to Ning Siyuan. These are the rest of the pills. Take 1 medicine every 2 days and 1 divine pill every 4 days. After taking the pill, you must circulate your qi for 36 cycles. Heavenly Slayer should be completely removed by the time you finish using these medicines. Previously, Ning Siyuan still had doubts about these words, but now she trusted them completely. She hurriedly took the pills and carefully accepted them. Then she bowed deeply to Ji Tianxing. "Young Master Tianxing, thank you for giving me these medicines and helping me resolve the pain of Heavenly Slayer. Such kindness is akin to rebirth. No matter where you are in the future, the Ning family will always be your most reliable ally. No matter when, as long as you need the Ning family's help, just say the word and the Ning family will." Ning Siyuan sincerely expressed her gratitude. However, Ji Tianxing waved his hand and interrupted her. "No need to be so serious. No one can predict what will happen in the future. Has the Ning family head already told you that I'm about to leave?" Ning Siyuan nodded and said with some reluctance, "I know that you want to go to the royal capital to participate in the divine blood ceremony, but there's still a month before the ceremony starts. During this time, you can stay in the Ning family." "There's no need. I have other matters to attend to." Ji Tianxing shook his head and reminded, "I will be leaving in 2 days. Remember to take the medicine and cultivate on time. Before the divine blood ceremony starts, you will definitely be able to resolve Heavenly Slayer and break through to the Divine Lord realm. After Heavenly Slayer is removed, your bloodline will become even purer. Your talent and potential will be fully stimulated, and your strength will progress even faster." Ning Siyuan found it hard to believe. She exclaimed in shock, "There is actually such an effect? This is too miraculous." In the past, the Ning family solution was to merge the bloodline power of others. This could suppress Heavenly Slayer, but the Heavenly Rage Divine Ape bloodline would also be suppressed and affected. Therefore, after resolving Heavenly Slayer, the Ning family disciples' talent and potential would decrease. However, the pills that Ji Tianxing refined could remove the bloodlines of ancient races and retain only the Heavenly Rage Divine Ape bloodline. This was the perfect solution. While Ning Siyuan was excited, another idea popped up in her mind. She hesitated for a moment before saying, stammeringly, Sir Tianxing, for you to be able to refine medicinal pills for me, I'm already immensely grateful. I know that perhaps this request of mine is somewhat overboard. Not waiting for her to finish talking, Ji Tianxing already said with a slight smile, Don't worry. The formulas to refine the ancient god blood refining pill and divine heart pure karma soup, I've already written them in the jade slip. Including the refining method and essentials, I've also recorded them down. The Ning family only needs to find a high-rank divine Lord Realm alchemist, and they will be able to successfully refine the medicinal pills. Finished talking, he took out a golden jade slip from his ring and handed it to Ning Siyuan. Ning Siyuan was immediately stunned, her eyes staring at him blankly, both eyes covered in a layer of mist. She was pleasantly surprised, and also very shocked and touched. Originally, she just wanted to ask about the medicinal pills formula. She would record it down herself, then let the Ning family study it properly. But she did not expect that Ji Tianxing actually considered it so thoroughly. Truly meticulous. Such care she had never felt from any man before. At this moment, a voice reverberated in her heart, and there was only one thought in her mind. Ning Siyuan, oh Ning Siyuan, what virtue and ability do you have to actually be able to meet a lucky star like young Master Tianxing? This is the only chance in this life. If you miss it now, you will spend the rest of your life in regret and regret. She instinctively opened her mouth, wanting to tell Ji Tianxing that such kindness would benefit the Ning family for generations to come. Even if she devoted herself to him, it would be hard to repay him. From today onwards, I am willing to follow by young master's side. Even if I am a slave or a maid, I will repay you. But Ji Tianxing looked at her with a calm expression and said in a gentle tone, Don't be in a daze, and don't say any more words of thanks. Accept the pill formula. Meeting is fate. In the future, just be more tolerant of Qi. Finished talking, he handed the jade slip to Ning Siyuan's hands, turned around, and left. Ning Siyuan held the jade slip in her hand and could no longer control it. 2 teardrops fell from her eyes. She did not know why. At this moment, she felt Ji Tianxing's broad-mindedness and magnanimity, and only felt ashamed of her inferiority. She was more and more certain that Ji Tianxing was not a fish in a pond, and would soon soar into the sky. Not to mention the Tianxue County and the Ning family. Even the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom would absolutely not be able to keep him. His future and journey would definitely belong to the Tianbei region, and even the entire Boundless Heaven continent. Chapter 29:51. Ning Siyuan left the pine tree courtyard. She was still invisible and left quietly without being discovered by anyone. After leaving the pine tree courtyard, she didn't return to her residence. She went to see Ning Qinggang immediately to share her joy and excitement with her father. It wasn't just her calamity that was about to be completely eliminated. Even the entire Ning family wouldn't be troubled by calamity in the future. The jade slip in her hand could change the fate of the Ning family. It could even allow the Ning family to fly into the sky and look down on the Bloodflame Divine Nation. Ji Tianxing returned to the study. As soon as he sat down, a silver-armored guard came to report. Young Master Tianxing, someone outside the residence, sent a secret letter for you to personally open. Then, the guard placed a letter in front of him. Ji Tianxing gestured for him to leave and picked up the letter to examine it. The words to Tianxing were written on the cover. It was neat and strong. He tore open the letter. There was a piece of luxurious purple-gold rice paper that emitted a faint fragrance. There were only 2 sentences on the letter. Tonight, at the Maplewoods Villa outside the city, I'll be waiting for you to come and settle our grudges. If you continue to be a coward, you're not worthy of competing with me. Get out of the Ning family. Duanmu Xiong. After reading it, Ji Tianxing's palm lit up with divine flames and burned the letter. His lips curled into a contemptuous sneer as he muttered, It's really this idiot. Last time, he was hiding his head but showing his tail, so I stood him up. This time, he learned his lesson and directly signed his name. He was afraid that I wouldn't go, so he must have set up an ambush at the Maplewoods Villa. Ji Tianxing knew that Duanmu Xiong was narrow-minded and would definitely plot against him. Logically speaking, he should have ignored this secret letter. Knowing that there was an ambush at the Maplewoods Villa, he shouldn't have gone. However, a small character like Duanmu Xiong was just a brat who was still wet behind the ears in his eyes. He didn't have any tricks up his sleeve and couldn't do anything. Even if he set up an ambush at the Maplewoods Villa, what threat could there be? Moreover, although this brat was stupid, he was still a prince. However, he was the crown prince after all, and his status was rather special. If he didn't use a thunderous method to intimidate them, they would continue to pester him in the future. Therefore, Ji Tianxing decided to make a trip there. He also wanted to see what Duanmu heir was up to. He turned his head to look out the window. Night had already fallen. Calculating the time, it was already Su Sure. Therefore, Ji Tianxing got up and walked out of Qingsong courtyard. After leaving the Ning mansion, he rushed to the east city gate. Previously, when Duanmu heir sent him a secret letter, he had already checked the location of Maplewoods Villa. On the outskirts of the eastern part of the city, there was a lone peak about 4,000 miles away. The lone peak was covered with red maple trees and was rather conspicuous. Ji Tianxing flew all the way, and in less than 100 breaths of time, he arrived at the peak of the lone peak. Standing in the night sky, he looked down at the lonely peak and the Maplewoods Manor at the peak. Under the cover of his divine sense, he could see everything in the manor. It was clear where people were hiding and where there were divine formations and traps. Just these few people gave him so much courage. Ji Tianxing smiled disdainfully after he figured out the situation. Swoosh! He descended from the sky and landed at the entrance of the manor. A black-robed old man was lying on top of a 3-feet-tall rockery, pretending to be asleep. When he sensed Ji Tianxing's arrival, he suddenly woke up and opened his cold eyes. It's him. He really came? But I've been monitoring the East City Gate. Why didn't I find him? The black-robed old man was secretly shocked. He looked at Ji Tianxing cautiously and sent a voice transmission to Duanmu Xiong, who was in the manor. Heir, the other party is here. In the manor, in the brightly lit main hall, Duanmu heir was drinking wine and enjoying the service of beautiful maids. He had not been in the Ning mansion for the past few days and had been staying in the manor. After all, he had to follow the rules in the Ning mansion. He could not be unrestrained in case the father and daughter of the Ning family saw him as a joke. However, he could not stand the loneliness. Of course, he had to hide in the Maplewoods Manor to indulge in wine and women. Therefore, he only knew that Ji Tianxing and Ning Siyuan had a rendezvous, but he did not know that the misunderstanding had been resolved. When he heard the black-robed old man's voice transmission, Duanmu Xiong's body shook, and his eyes shone brightly. Ha ha ha! That arrogant little bastard. He still came after all? When he's here, let him enter the main hall to greet me. Duanmu Xiong was pleasantly surprised, but he forgot that the black-robed old man said arrived and not came. The black-robed old man was helpless and could only send a voice transmission to remind him again. Heir, he's already at the main entrance. Duanmu Xiong finally reacted and said in shock, he's already at the main entrance? Old hey, what are you doing? Didn't I tell you to keep an eye on the East City Gate? Why did you only report the news when he's already in front of you? The black-robed old man was silent for a moment before he explained weakly, Heir, this person's strength is unfathomable. Duanmu Xiong instinctively curled his lips and sneered disdainfully. Straw my ass. Tonight, he must kneel in front of me and beg for mercy to live. All right, let him come in. The black-robed old man did not say anything else and only said, Yes, sir. Not long after, Ji Tianxing entered the Maple Forest Manor and stepped into the main hall that was brightly lit. There were only a few people in the spacious main hall. Duanmu Xiong was lying on the wide throne, hugging two beautiful maids on his left and right. Hu Lai stood at the side, looking straight ahead with a dignified expression. Ji Tianxing stood in the middle of the main hall and glanced at Duanmu Xiong indifferently. You asked me to come here twice just to let me see your vulgar and ugly behavior with my own eyes? Duanmu Xiong immediately frowned, anger rising in his heart. He pushed the two maids away and asked them to leave. He glared at Ji Tianxing with a venomous gaze and sneered. Brat, you've committed a heinous crime and don't have long to live. You still dare to pretend in front of me? Duan Muxiong had already thought it through. When he said this sentence, Ji Tianxing would definitely pretend not to understand and ask what heinous crime he had committed. He would immediately take out the evidence and expose Ji Tianxing's crimes in front of him, denouncing his crimes. Ji Tianxing would be shocked and lose his mind on the spot, making a fool of himself. Then, he would use threats and promises. Ji Tianxing could only admit his mistake and beg him to be merciful at that time. It would be time for him to hold his head high and show off his strength. He would humiliate Ji Tianxing as much as he liked, venting his anger as much as he liked. He had already thought of the entire process and even had a draft of the lines. What a perfect process. Unfortunately, things did not go as he thought. Ji Tianxing looked at him coldly and said in an indifferent tone, "Your so-called heinous crime, is it the murder of the Qingshan city lord and the murder of Princess Tianfeng?" Duan Muxiong was stunned. He did not expect Ji Tianxing to take the initiative to say it. This was not right. Why was he not following the script? However, Duan Muxiong was still calm. He quickly pointed at him and sneered. "Hee, I was just about to announce your crimes. Since you know your place and admit it yourself, it's best that you do it. Do you know what kind of heinous crime you have committed according to our country's laws?" Chapter 2952. Duan Muxiong sat up straight and tried to put on a dignified look. Even his voice was purposely low and solemn. He questioned Ji Tianxing as if he was the chief judge of the court. But Ji Tianxing only wanted to laugh when he saw him like this. "Ha ha, Duan Muxiong, there's a phrase called a monkey's crown. I'll give it to you." Duan Muxiong was stunned. Although he didn't know what Ji Tianxing meant, he knew that Ji Tianxing was mocking him. Immediately, he was furious and scolded. "Sinner Tianxing, do you know your crime? I represent the kingdom of God's royal family to announce your crime tonight. Why aren't you kneeling down?" Ji Tianxing's expression became more and more disdainful. He shook his head and sneered. "No wonder you have no status in the royal family, even though you're the eldest grandson of the king. You even have to rely on the second prince and the third prince, and rely on the welfare of your parents to get a little living space. You're so stupid. You really can't be carved out of rotten wood." Nonsense. Duan Muxiong was exposed and became more and more angry. He shouted, "Bastard, I'm judging your crime. Don't change the topic." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and said, "Fine. Since you're so stupid, I'll give you some advice. Do you think the king knows about the murder of the Qingshan city lord and Princess Tianfeng?" Duan Muxiong answered without hesitation. "The whole kingdom of God is under the king's control. He's a holy king. How can he not know the truth? Don't think that you can get away with it just because you did it secretly and didn't leave any evidence." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, "Since the king knows the truth, why didn't he order me to be arrested? Have you thought about it?" This. Duan Muxiong was at a loss for words. He frowned and thought for a while. Then, he said without confidence, "Maybe the king is busy and ordered people to investigate you. But those people from the warden department always do things slowly." Ji Tianxing sneered and said, "It's been more than a month. Even a kid like you dares to set up a private court to judge my crime. If the king really wants to arrest me, I'm already in the capital. So, it's not that you don't want to capture me, but you can't." "Why can't I?" Duan Muxiong retorted instinctively. "You're lawless and arrogant. You openly killed the city lord and the infanta who were appointed by the god nation. That's a great crime that's punishable by death." Ji Tianxing sighed and said earnestly, "Children don't know anything. You should watch more and learn more. Don't do childish things all day and embarrass your father. All right, that's all I have to say. Take care of yourself. Don't provoke me in the future, or else your life will be in danger." After saying this, he turned to leave. Duan Muxiong was so childish that he didn't have any interest in talking to him, lest he insulted his intelligence. Unexpectedly, Duan Muxiong flew into a rage from embarrassment, and he immediately stood up and said with a savage smile, "Kid, you've already come here, yet you still want to leave? How naive. Do you think you can still leave in one piece tonight? Without a doubt, Duan Muxiong was going to make things difficult for them. His face was filled with a sinister smile, and his entire body was emitting a murderous aura. Hu Lai's eyes lit up as he stared at Ji Tianxing with murderous intent. He held a treasured sword in his hand. At the same time, the old man in black who was guarding the door also appeared at the entrance of the main hall like a ghost. He held a snake-shaped short sword in each hand and blocked Ji Tianxing's way of retreat. Ji Tianxing stopped and turned around to look at Duan Muxiong. The corners of his mouth curled up into a disdainful sneer. Since you can't reason with me, you want to use force? Do you think you can make me stay with these useless people? Duan Muxiong naturally wouldn't be frightened by him. He shouted confidently, "Kid, you're still so stubborn even when you're about to die? I like to see if you can still be so arrogant when you're captured and your life is in danger." Ji Tianxing smiled and said, "How can a person be so stupid? Since you know that I killed the Infanta Tianfeng and the few divine lords, how can you still be so arrogant? Then how dare you rely on these pieces of trash to keep me here?" Duan Muxiong sneered and said, "I'm sure that no matter how arrogant you are, you won't dare to kill me. Moreover, I've already set up an inescapable net here. You can't escape. Moreover, you killed the Infanta Tianfeng and the divine lords of the 5 big families by means of conspiracy. Maybe you have the help of some experts." Ji Tianxing was speechless. He flicked his index fingers and said with a smile, "Since you're so confident, then let them all come out. I'll kill them all together." Duan Muxiong didn't notice anything unusual. The old man in black who was guarding the door saw Ji Tianxing flicking his finger and was immediately alarmed. He vaguely felt that Ji Tianxing released an invisible force that spread in the main hall. "Bastard, what are you doing?" The old man in black stared at him and asked in a deep voice. Ji Tianxing ignored him. Duan Muxiong and Hu Lai were confused. They didn't know what the old man in black meant. At this time, Ji Tianxing sneered again. "Duan Muxiong, what are you waiting for? The 4 scoundrels hiding in the secret room. Tell them to come out. I'll let you see with your own eyes how the divine lords you rely on can't even withstand a single blow. I only need to move my finger and they'll die on the spot." Duan Muxiong was shocked, and disbelief flashed in his eyes. How does he know that there are 4 divine lords in the manor, and they're all in the secret room? Qing Shan and Lu Shui are my servants. He'll know after a little investigation. However, the other 2 divine sovereigns came quietly. Only I know about it. That's right. Other than Qing Shan and Lu Shui, 2 middle-level divine lords came to the Maplewoods Manor the night before. Duan Muxiong had decided to borrow those 2 divine lords from a force at the last minute. For that, he had paid a huge price. He had wanted to catch Ji Tianxing by surprise. But he didn't expect that Ji Tianxing had already noticed the 2 divine lords. How could he not be shocked? But he calmed down immediately and ordered, "Come out and take down this arrogant man." As his voice fell, 2 balls of black fog appeared in the northeast corner of the main hall. Swish! Swish! 2 figures appeared in the corner of the main hall, drifting like black fog. One of them was 20 feet tall and as sturdy as a tower. It was Divine Lord Qing Shan. The other person was petite and 6 feet tall. It was an old woman with a hunched back. It was Divine Lord Lu Shui. At the entrance of the main hall, 2 figures appeared on the left and right sides of the black-robed elder. One was a skinny man with white hair in a blood-red robe. The other was a brawny man in black armor who was as fat as a ball. These 4 divine lords, together with Old He, Hu Lai, and Duan Muxiong, made a total of 7 divine lords. Also, there were a few monarch-level divine arrays in a manner that could greatly increase everyone's combat power and suppress Ji Tianxing. This was the source of Duan Muxiong's confidence and fearlessness. The trap had been set. Duan Muxiong waited for Ji Tianxing to kneel and beg for mercy. Chapter 29:53. Swoosh! Suddenly, the Maplewoods Manor was lit up by a ray of light. Everything within a 10-mile radius was covered by the colorful light and isolated from the outside world. The first divine array was activated. The Maple Woods Manor was sealed, and no one outside could know what was happening inside. Swoosh! Swoosh! Then, the second and third divine arrays were activated. One of the two divine arrays was used to suppress Ji Tianxing and weaken his combat power. The other one was a soul-sealing array, which could suppress his divine soul and disrupt his divine consciousness and mind. The three divine arrays had their own uses, but they were all used to kill Ji Tianxing without being detected by others. The divine arrays were activated and the entire manor was illuminated by the colorful divine light. Ji Tianxing, who was in the main hall, immediately felt a boundless, formless pressure descending from above. No matter how powerful he would be affected and had to use his divine power to resist. The four Sir Gods, who lie, and Old Hay kept accumulating their divine power and preparing their strongest attack. As long as Duanmu Xiong gave the order, they would kill Ji Tianxing. However, Duanmu Xiong was confident of victory and was determined to win. He felt that he was in control of the situation and that he had the power to kill Ji Tianxing. Under such circumstances, he was not in a hurry to kill Ji Tianxing. Before killing him, he would humiliate him and make him kneel and beg for mercy. Only then would he be able to vent his hatred. Tianxing, the divine array that I have set up has been activated. You must be feeling very uncomfortable now and can't use your strength, right? Even your divine soul is suppressed and your consciousness is starting to blur, right? Under such circumstances, how much combat power can you use? Duanmu Xiong sat boldly on the throne and looked down at Ji Tianxing. His words were filled with complacency. It's not too late for you to regret now. I will give you one last chance. Kneel down and kowtow to this prince to admit your wrongs, and beg this prince to forgive you. Without waiting for Duanmu Xiong to finish, Ji Tianxing said with a disdainful expression, "Frog in a well, remember what you said. I advise you to think carefully about how to save your life when you kneel down and beg for mercy later." Duanmu Xiong flew into a rage and said with a hideous smile, "Little bastard, you're really tired of living. You won't shed tears until you see the coffin." He waved his hand and gave the order to the few Sir Gods. "Attack together. Take him down. Don't kill him by accident. I still want to humiliate him." Hearing Duanmu Xiong's order, Qing Shan and Lu Shui acknowledged his order. They immediately unleashed their full divine power, brandishing their swords and sabers as they charged toward Ji Tianxing. The other two middle-level divine lords of unknown origins also took out their strangely shaped divine artifacts and attacked with all their might. As for Hu Lai and Old Hay, they were even more loyal and devoted. They took the lead and charged towards Ji Tianxing. Immediately, the six divine lord powerhouses erupted with full power, wanting to use their ultimate killing moves. Divine power surged wildly in the hall, stirring up a five-colored storm visible to the naked eye. Soon, the six Sir Gods' killing moves were displayed. Ji Tianxing was going to die on the spot. But at this juncture of life and death, Ji Tianxing was still calm and composed, without the slightest intention of retaliating. He still had a cold smile on his face. He just raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. In the next instant, the six Sir Gods who were currently unleashing their full power and were about to cast their divine arts froze at the same time, frozen on the spot. The six Sir Gods all let out a painful, muffled groan. Fresh blood flowed out of their mouths and noses. No idea why. Their faces all became a wretched green. Their internal organs and meridians were scorching pain like they were on fire, as if their blood was burning. The horrifying pain was unbearable. The six Sir Gods all staggered in their steps, their entire bodies trembling like sifting chaff. Qing Shan, Lu Shui, and the two middle-level Sir Gods could still maintain their composure. Hu Lai and Old Hay's strength were weaker. They only forcefully held on for 2 breaths of time before letting out miserable howls of pain, fresh blood spurting wildly from their mouths and noses. The two people seriously could not withstand the pain of their internal organs burning and actually fell to the ground and rolled around, spilling fresh blood all over the ground. The sudden unforeseen event made Duanmu Xiong directly dumbfounded. Just now, he was still confident that victory was within his grasp, brimming with confidence. At this moment, it was as if he was struck by lightning, opening both eyes wide like he had seen a ghost, revealing an incomparably horrified expression. What's wrong with you guys? Get up. Quickly get up and kill him. Duanmu Xiong could not figure it out. Why would the Sir Gods, who were still seething with killing intent, suddenly spurt blood nonstop, their faces ghastly green? Qing Shan and Lu Shui forcefully endured the intense pain. At the same time that blood spurted out of their mouths, they roared intermittently, "Prince, we were poisoned." Duanmu Xiong came to a realization. Glaring at Ji Tianqing with a savage look, he roared angrily, It's you, this despicable bastard. Who poisoned them?" Ji Tianqing looked straight at him with a cold smile on his face and nodded his head without evading in the slightest. "That's right. It was this lord who poisoned them. This lord said earlier, I don't need to make a move at all and can also kill these trash. Not only them, but you are also poisoned. It's just that the poison in your body, this lord let it brew for a while longer so that it can erupt with more power." Cold sweat immediately broke out on Duanmu Xiong's back. He looked a little flustered, and fear flashed across his eyes. He subconsciously lowered his head to look at himself. His hands were still touching his body, fearing that something was wrong. Fortunately, his whole body was intact, and his divine power was flowing smoothly, and his consciousness was very clear. Only then did he heave a sigh of relief. Glaring at Ji Tianqing angrily, he roared, "Tianqing, you despicable bastard, you actually used poison? What did you poison them? Why didn't they notice?" Ji Tianqing looked indifferent as he said, "You set up an ambush here, wanting to take my life. Isn't that more sinister and vicious? I used poison to deal with them, also to protect myself. They wanted to kill me, so they should be prepared to be killed by me. As for when I poisoned them, a moment ago, when I flicked my index fingers, the invisible and mysterious poison had already filled this manor. My method of using poison is beyond your imagination. How could these useless people detect it?" Duanmu Xiong was refuted by his words, and he was speechless. Furthermore, Ji Tianqing's use of poison was superb, and no one could detect it. It made Duanmu Xiong shudder. He began to panic, and his heart was filled with fear. In his panic, his eyes darted around, and he shouted anxiously, "Qing Shan, Lu Shui, you have to hold on. Tianqing was the one who poisoned them. As long as you work together to capture him, you can get the antidote." At this point, he knew that he was no match for Ji Tianqing. He could only hope that the Sir Gods still had the strength to fight and work together to capture Ji Tianqing. In this way, he still had a chance to turn the tables. As long as he could capture Ji Tianqing, he was willing to accept it even if the Sir Gods had to sacrifice themselves. However, Ji Tianqing snapped his fingers again. Duanmu Xiong's fantasy and extravagant hope were completely shattered. Puff! The invisible and mysterious poison exploded, causing the 6 Sir Gods to spit out black blood, and their bodies fell to the ground. End of chapter. Chapter 2954. Who lie in old black, who were the weakest among them, fainted on the spot. Under Duanmu Xiong's horrified gaze, their chests quickly festered and black blood flowed out. Then, their divine bodies also rapidly decayed and became riddled with holes. In just a short while, the 2 corpses turned into a pool of blood. Not even their bones were left. Only their godheads, which were covered in a layer of green divine light, remained quietly on the ground. Ji Tianqing extended his hand and shot out a ray of golden light, capturing the 2 godheads in his hand. He clenched his fist and crushed the 2 godheads in a powder before putting them into his spatial ring. Who lie in old black, whom Duanmu Xiong relied on the most, were dead. Duanmu Xiong had seen the entire process clearly. He was scared out of his wits and broke out in cold sweat. Qing Shan, Lu Shui, and the 2 middle-level divine lords were also trembling in fear and sweating profusely. "Your Highness, leave quickly. This person kills without batting an eyelid." Don't worry about us. Run quickly. Yes, you are the honorable crown prince. He won't dare to kill you. Run back to Tianxue City and escape to the Ning family. Only then can you save your life. Qing Shan and Lu Shui were very loyal. They knew that they would die without a doubt, but they did not forget to let Duanmu Xiong escape. However, Duanmu Xiong sat stiffly on the throne, his expression extremely ugly. Escape? Where can I escape to? I am also poisoned. I can't use my divine power at all. Only now did he realize that his body was numb, and he could not use any of his divine power. Under such circumstances, he was not much stronger than a mortal who had not become a god. How could he escape? When Qin Shan and Lu Shui heard that, their last hope was extinguished. Both of them were inconsolable. They glared at Ji Tianxing with bloodshot eyes and shouted angrily, "Bastard, we will fight it out with you. Even if we die, we will not let you off easily." The two of them were determined to die and wanted to perish together with Ji Tianxing. However, Duanmu Xiong was also in the main hall. They could not self-detonate. Once it's self-destructed, it would be an indiscriminate attack that could destroy the heavens and earth. Therefore, the two of them performed their forbidden ultimate skills. They wanted to burn their flesh, blood, soul, and cultivation to turn them into soul-slaying swords to severely wound Ji Tianxing's soul. Shua, as the two of them crazily circulated their martial arts, their bodies ignited with blood-red flames. A violent aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth surged violently in the hall, and it was about to explode. Ji Tianxing showed a look of disdain. He raised his hands neither too fast nor too slow and slapped the two of them. In front of this monarch, you don't even have the qualifications to commit suicide. As he spoke, black light gushed out from his palms, turning into two vortexes that enveloped the green mountain and the green water. That pitch-black, ice-cold divine light also contained a blazing white brilliance. It was the power of the heaven-mending orb. Soon, Qing Shan and Lu Shui's flesh, blood, soul, and cultivation were devoured by the heaven-mending orb. Their bodies and lifetimes' worth of cultivation had turned into a vast and mighty power, and were stored in the heaven-mending orb. Even their godheads were swallowed by the heaven-mending orb and temporarily sealed. Duanmu Xiong watched as Qin Shan and Lu Shui were swallowed by the vortexes, and not even a trace of dregs was left. He was so scared that his liver and guts were torn apart. His mind was in a mess, and his heart was terrified to the extreme. He only wanted to turn around and run away. But his body was stiff, and his divine power was sealed. He could only sit and enjoy the massacre. He had no choice but to watch. Ji Tianxing ignored him. After dealing with Qin Shan and Lu Shui, he walked towards the two unknown monarchs. One was a skinny man with a head full of white hair, and the other was a brawny man in black armor who was round like a ball. At this moment, the man in the blood-red robe knelt on the ground. His white hair drooped down, and blood kept dripping from his mouth and nose. He endured the pain without making a sound, and silently circulated his martial arts to resist the corrosion of the poison. Ji Tianxing walked in front of him and looked down at him from above. He asked, "A middle-level monarch of the sixth heaven realm, and you have cultivated for more than 10,000 years. With your strength and innate ability, you were able to resist this monarch's poison and still retain 40% of your strength. Why do you only circulate your martial arts to resist the poison and not attack?" The man in the blood-red robe still had his head lowered, and his voice was hoarse and low. "I have long heard that young Master Tianxing's martial arts are unfathomable, and his methods are strange and ruthless. Tonight, I have experienced it, and it is indeed terrifying. Since young Master Tianxing can invisibly poison us, we will not be able to defeat him. Then we will definitely not be young Master's match. If we forcefully attack, we will also be seeking our own deaths. Moreover, we are only hired by Duanmu Xiong and not his subordinates. How can we work for him?" Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and sneered. "You are a smart man." After that, he turned his head and glanced at Duanmu Xiong. Duanmu Xiong was shocked, and he shouted with grief and indignation, "Thousand-star extermination! What do you mean? Are you going to go against your superior's orders, betray me, and surrender to him?" The man in the blood-red robe called Thousand-Star Extermination said indifferently, "We are just assassins who work for money. We only care about money in life. Since the mission has failed, of course, we will prioritize our lives. You are not following the rules." Duan Muxiong was so angry that his eyebrows were twitching and his eyes were bloodshot. Thousand-Star Extermination ignored him and said to Ji Tianxing, "Young Master Tianxing, your martial arts and skills are unfathomable, and I am very impressed. I surrender, and I hope that young Master Tianxing will be merciful and spare my life. From today onwards, I will not dare to offend young Master Tianxing. Wherever you are, I will retreat thousands of miles away, and I will not dare to offend you." After that, he gave a look to the brawny man in black armor not far away. The brawny man in black armor also lowered his head to Ji Tianxing and said in a low voice, "I am Thousand-Star Extermination. Tonight, I have witnessed young Master Tianxing's methods, and I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. I surrender, and I hope that young Master will be merciful." Ji Tianxing did not comment, and asked with a frown, "To be able to hire middle-level divine lords as assassins, the force you belong to is not simple. Tell me your true identities." Thousand-Star Extermination immediately bowed and said, "Please forgive us, young Master Tianxing. Since we are assassins, we cannot reveal our identities, or else in the future." Before he could finish, Ji Tianxing sent him flying with a kick. He flew 100 feet in the air, smashed into the wall of the main hall, and rolled on the ground. Cough, cough. Thousand-Star Extermination was covered in blood, and he coughed violently. The injuries to his internal organs and meridians were even more serious, and they were almost completely destroyed. Ji Tianxing sneered and said, "This is your attitude of surrendering? You don't even want to reveal your identity, and you still want to live?" The brawny man in black armor's eyes spat fire, and he growled in humiliation, "Young Master Tianxing, we respect you, and please respect our identities and duties. We surrender to you because we don't want to fight to the death. Don't think that we are really afraid of you. The force behind us is not something you can provoke." "Ha ha!" Ji Tianxing laughed contemptuously and said, "In that case, you can die obediently." After that, he lifted his foot and stomped on the brawny man in black armor's head. The brawny man in black armor's expression changed dramatically, and he quickly teleported to dodge. Chapter 29:55. Bang! With a muffled sound, blood splattered everywhere. The brawny man's head exploded, and he died on the spot. The headless body fell to the ground and stopped moving after a few twitches. The godhead, covered in a layer of green, poisonous gas, flew out of the blood rain and escaped. After all, this man was a sixth heaven middle divine emperor. Even if his body was destroyed and his godhead was corroded by the poison, he could still hold on for a while. He could still retain 30% or 40% of his strength, which was enough for him to escape. However, he met Ji Tianxing. If Ji Tianxing wanted to kill him, he was destined to die. Swoosh! The godhead flew out of the hall and was about to cross the courtyard. All of a sudden, Ji Tianxing teleported over and blocked his path. He waved his sleeves, and a bright golden light swept out and enveloped the godhead. No matter how hard Thousand-Star Killer struggled, he could not escape from the golden light and was immediately captured. Knowing that he could not escape and sensing Ji Tianxing's murderous intent, Thousand-Star Killer quickly admitted defeat. "Young Master Tianxing, please spare my life. I'll tell you everything." Ji Tianxing said coldly, "No need. Die in peace." As soon as he finished his words, he crushed the godhead into pieces. Thousand-Star Killer died, tragically, without even a chance to regret. Ji Tianxing returned to the hall with the godhead fragment in his hand. He originally thought that the blood-robed man, Thousand-Star Extermination, would definitely take the opportunity to escape. However, he did not expect that Thousand-Star Killer was still in the hall, sitting cross-legged on the ground to resist the poison. Ji Tianxing flew in front of him and asked again, "Why didn't you run away?" Thousand-Star Killer smiled bitterly and said, "If I ran away, I would definitely die. Only by not running away can I have a chance to live." Before Ji Tianxing could ask him anything, he said, "Thousand-Star Killer and I are Purple Star Assassins from the Evil Blood Palace. Our positions are equal to that of the elders. Crown Prince Duanmu paid 10 billion to hire me and Thousand-Star Kill to ambush you here." Ji Tianxing nodded slightly and said, "It's the Evil Blood Palace, one of the 6 great sects, the largest intelligence and assassination organization in the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom." He had investigated the 6 major sects a long time ago and knew a little about them. The baleful Blood Palace Master was the most mysterious and unfathomable. He called himself the Baleful Blood Star. The Vice Palace Master normally oversaw the general situation, and her title was Purple Fiend Star. Under the 2 Palace Masters, there were several elders. They were all mid-level divine lords and were known as the Purple Star Assassins. Below Purple Star were the lesser divine lords, known as the Golden Star Assassins. Below Gold Star were Silver Star Assassins. They were all 7th level Heavenly God Realm and above. Ji Tianxing stared at the Thousand-Star Annihilation and sneered, "The Evil Blood Palace is really cheap. You only need 10 billion divine stones to assassinate me?" Thousand-Star Extermination smiled bitterly and said, "Young Master Tianxing, you must be joking. This is already a rare, sky-high price. It hasn't appeared for many years. If someone wanted to assassinate Duanmu Crown Prince, they only needed to pay 1 billion. It's just that no one wanted to assassinate him because of his special status." Ji Tianxing frowned and said contemptuously, "You mean that guy's worth 1/10 of what I am? Humph. You really think too highly of him." Thousand-Star Annihilation smiled apologetically and said, "Young Master, please don't be angry. Duanmu Crown Prince is stupid and foppish. If I had known that you were so powerful, I wouldn't have accepted it, even if you offered 100 billion or even 1,000,000,000,000 divine stones. You know your place." Ji Tianxing waved his hand indifferently and said, "You can go now. Remember to tell your master not to provoke me in the future. Otherwise, I don't mind destroying the Evil Blood Palace." Thousand-Star Annihilation hesitated for a moment and said, "I'll pass on your words word for word. I'll also report what happened tonight and persuade the Vice Palace Master not to do anything to you. But I have to remind you that the Vice Palace Master is proud and arrogant. For the sake of the Evil Blood Palace's reputation and dignity, he may double his revenge." His words only touched on the point. Ji Tianxing understood what he meant. He sneered and said, "It doesn't matter. Just do what you should do. If anyone from the Evil Blood Palace dares to offend me again, I'll kill them all, including you." Thousand-Star Annihilation shook his head and said with a wry smile, "Young Master, your poison has destroyed most of my foundation. When I return to the Evil Blood Palace, I must practice in seclusion for more than 100 years to recover. Moreover, I'd rather disobey your order than be your enemy. Then go." Ji Tianxing waved his sleeve and shot out a golden light. Thousand-Star Annihilation flew out of the Maplewoods Manor and landed outside the gate. Thousand-Star Annihilation landed steadily and looked back at the manor that was sealed by the array. His eyes flashed with horror. "He just waved his sleeve and sent me out? Didn't this mean that the 3 divine formations were useless against him and couldn't trap him at all? My God, this person is not only powerful and proficient in poison, but also in array doctrine. It's better for the Evil Blood Palace not to provoke such a terrifying expert. That idiot Duanmu Xiong has killed Thousand-Star Annihilation." Thousand-Star Annihilation was shocked. He muttered a few words in a low voice and quickly disappeared into the darkness. Only Ji Tianxing and Duanmu Xiong were left in the hall. Ji Tianxing had killed 5 of the 6 divine emperors. Thousand-Star Annihilation was smart enough to take advantage of the situation and survive. Seeing Ji Tianxing kill the divine emperors like killing chickens, Duanmu Xiong felt his blood freeze and almost wet his pants. Now, Ji Tianxing was walking toward him with killing intent all over his body. Duan Muxiong sat stiffly and lowered his head in horror. He did not dare to look directly at Ji Tianxing's expression. Don't kill me. I'm the crown prince of the Wang family, the eldest grandson of the monarch. You can't kill me. Feeling Ji Tianxing's murderous aura and divine might, he trembled in fear and cried out with a trembling voice. As Ji Tianxing came closer, Duan Muxiong tried his best to curl up like a frightened quail. Ji Tianxing stood in front of him and looked at him with a half-smile. You're the only one who treats your identity as the crown prince like a treasure. Actually, in my eyes, you're no different from dust and grass. No, it's not like that. Duan Muxiong shook his head desperately and cried out, This is the Bloodfire Kingdom, and the monarch is my grandfather. He's a top elite. No matter how arrogant you are, you can't kill me. Otherwise, Grandpa Monarch will cut you into pieces. Ji Tianxing sneered disdainfully. Even if I want to kill the entire royal family and destroy the Bloodfire Kingdom, it's just a matter of a thought for me. Give up your feudal resistance and sincerely repent and beg for mercy. That's your only chance to live. Then, he grabbed Duan Muxiong and threw him into the hall. He sat boldly on the throne and looked at Duan Muxiong with a smile. Duan Muxiong suddenly discovered that the poison in his body had disappeared. His stiff body regained its freedom, and the sealed divine power began to flow again. Therefore, he rushed to the door in ecstasy, bursting with a strong desire to survive, and ran away as fast as he could. It was a pity. Just as he rushed to the entrance of the main hall, the two bronze doors slammed shut. A giant golden palm appeared out of nowhere and dragged him back to the main hall, forcing him to kneel on the ground. In a chapter, update soonest, new August 1st Chinese Network, IM. Chapter 2956. Plop. The giant golden palm pressed down on Duan Muxiong, making him kneel heavily on the ground. Two craters were formed on the brick ground, and dense cracks appeared on the surface. Duan Muxiong's knees also sank into the brick. He was extremely humiliated, and he roared with grief and indignation. Bastard! How dare you humiliate me like this? You humiliated the king's descendant, which is the same as humiliating the entire royal family. You want to become the enemy of the entire blood-flame divine kingdom. Ji Tianxing said with an indifferent expression, What are you screaming for? Are you still hoping that someone will come to save you? Don't forget, the entire manor is sealed by your array. Even if you shout until your throat is hoarse, there won't be a third person to hear you. Duan Muxiong immediately withered. He lowered his head, and his heart was filled with struggle and hesitation, silently weighing the pros and cons. Forget it. A wise man knows better than to fight when the odds are against him. I'll lower my head and apologize to him first. Then I'll think about what to do after I escape this calamity. As long as I can survive, I'll definitely report this to Grandpa King and tear him into pieces. At that time, I'll return the humiliation tonight 10 times, no, 100 times. After making up his mind, he slowly raised his head and stared at Ji Tianxing with red eyes. He gritted his teeth and said, You win, saying that you win meant that he admitted defeat. But Ji Tianxing frowned and said, And then? Duan Muxiong fiercely glared at him, and then he endured the humiliation and said, I admit that you're very strong, but I underestimated you, so I made such a stupid mistake. I hope that you'll be magnanimous and spare me this time for Grandpa King's sake. After saying these words, Duan Muxiong seemed to have lost all his strength, gasping for breath, and his spirit was dispirited. He had always thought highly of himself, and had been spoiled and flattered since he was young. To be able to say such soft words was already the limit, and it made him feel extremely humiliated. However, Ji Tianxing disdainfully sneered and said, I said you're stupid, and you're really stupid to the extreme. Thousand-star extermination has already set a very good example for you. Why can't you learn it? Forget it. If I don't give you an unforgettable lesson, you won't know what fear is. Even now, you're still thinking that you should endure for now. After tonight's calamity, you'll definitely take revenge on me tenfold, no, 100-fold. Duan Muxiong was stunned for a moment. He averted his gaze, not daring to meet his eyes. Ji Tianxing flicked his finger expressionlessly and ignited the poison again. Suddenly, Duanmu Xiong's face turned green. He could not help but spit out a mouthful of black blood. PFFF. What was even more terrifying was that his internal organs and bloodline felt as if they were on fire, and he felt a heart-wrenching pain. Duanmu Xiong was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. He rolled on the ground and let out a miserable howl. Ji Tianxing remained unmoved and looked at him indifferently. After Duanmu Xiong rolled a dozen times on the ground, he suddenly realized that there was a large patch of black blood staining his robe below his waist. He lifted his robe in shock, only to find that his lower abdomen had already rotted and foul-smelling black blood was gushing out. His tool to carry on his ancestral line had disappeared. All that was left was a bloody hole the size of a bowl. Such a tragic blow caused him to see darkness before his eyes. He fainted in grief and anger. However, Ji Tianxing flicked his finger and shot out a stream of divine soul power to wake him up. Duanmu Xiong looked at his crotch with a disheartened expression. He cursed crazily, "Bastard! You bastard! You're so vicious!" Ji Tianxing looked at him expressionlessly and said indifferently, "Tonight, if you don't show enough sincerity and kneel before me to repent, don't even think about leaving here. Don't worry, I won't kill you, at least not tonight. But you should know that sometimes living is more painful than dying." Duanmu Xiong had already sensed the meaning of this sentence. He did not doubt that Ji Tianxing's ruthless methods could definitely make him suffer so much that he wished he was dead. Ji Tianxing added, "If you can satisfy me tonight, I'll let you go. As for the poison in your body, keep it for the time being. During this time, don't think about playing tricks and don't expect anyone to save you. Except for me, no one can detoxify the poison. When I leave the blood flame divine country, or when the time is right, I'll detoxify the poison in your body. If you don't want to repeat the same mistake, you should know what to do." Ji Tianxing's words made Duanmu Xiong's body tremble again. Unparalleled fear filled his body and mind, making him feel like dead ashes. He sat on the ground, crying and shouting for a long time before he gradually calmed down. This time, he didn't show any hatred or murderous intent. He stared at the ground and said with a blank face, "Tianxing, it's my fault. I shouldn't have provoked you. I was narrow-minded and vengeful. I treated you as my rival in love, so I tried every possible way to deal with you. It's ridiculous that my love for Ning Siyuan was one-sided. She treated me like dirt and only had you in her eyes. I hate that I was too stupid. I didn't know how strong you were, and I shouldn't have played tricks in front of you. After tonight, I won't be your enemy anymore. I will leave Tianxue County and return to the capital to treat my injuries. I won't show my face again. I understand that my life is in your hands. Therefore, I won't tell Grandpa Monarch. Otherwise, before Grandpa Monarch can kill you, I'll die first, right?" After hearing his words, Ji Tianxing nodded and said with a smile, "You're a promising child. I hope you'll keep your words and actions and stop asking for trouble. Okay, this matter ends here. You can scram." Ji Tianxing waved his hand dispiritedly, indicating Duanmu Xiong to leave. Duanmu Xiong endured the pain and got up with difficulty. He staggered and left. Although the mysterious poison had been hidden and wouldn't act up for the time being, the injuries to his internal organs and blood vessels had already formed and the pain was still there, especially when his tool had disappeared and only a bloody hole was left. The blow to his spirit was comparable to castrating him. Until he left the Maple Forest Manor, Duanmu Xiong's expression was wooden and his eyes were dim and lifeless. He was like a walking corpse. 100 breaths later, Ji Tianxing also left quietly. When he returned to the Ning Manor, it was already midnight. What surprised him was that the bedroom was filled with boxes of gifts of various sizes. There were a total of 50 to 60 gold and purple gift boxes and chests. Ji Tianxing summoned the guard and asked what was going on. The guard answered respectfully, "Young master, this was sent by Eldest Miss and the Patriarch. They said it was a small gift to express their gratitude. The Patriarch also said that he couldn't repay your kindness, and this small gift is just a token of his sincerity." If you don't accept it, the patriarch will send someone to deliver it again tomorrow. Ji Tianxing knew immediately that Ning Siyuan must have told Ning Qinggang about the pill that cured Heavenly Slayer. Ning Qinggang must have been moved to tears when he learned that Heavenly Slayer could be cured and the Ning clan disciples no longer needed to suffer. It was natural to send gifts to express gratitude. Ji Tianxing casually opened a few gift boxes and saw luxurious and exquisite robes, jade crowns, accessories, and so on. He opened a few more boxes and saw that they were filled with divine crystals, monarch-level divine pills, and treasures. After scanning it with his soul consciousness, he had a rough estimate of the price. It was at least 3 billion. Chapter 29:57. The Ning father and daughter were truly extravagant. A single gift was worth several billion. Moreover, they were very considerate and thoughtful. From food and clothing to cultivation necessities, everything was prepared. Of course, compared to the change in future that Ji Tianxing had brought to the Ning family, that gift was indeed nothing. Since Ning Qinggang insisted on giving it, he naturally had to accept it. Since he had nothing to do, he entered the secret chamber to meditate and cultivate. Next, he only needed to wait for the batch of heavenly god-grade equipment to be sold. Once he received the huge sum of 10 billion, he would leave the Ning residence. Time passed very quickly. Unknowingly, it was already noon of the next day. Ji Tianxing was cultivating when the guard outside the secret chamber suddenly reported that someone had delivered a secret letter. Thus, he stopped cultivating and took the letter. When he opened it, he found that it was from Left Emissary Jean. The contents of the letter were similar to the previous message. The Bloodblade sect had destroyed 3 more branches of the Bloodsword sect, killing many disciples and deacons and seizing a large amount of wealth and resources. Left Emissary Jean said that Ji Tianxing had killed the Left Protector and 2 elders of the Bloodsword sect, causing the Bloodsword sect to be weak. This allowed the Bloodblade sect's plan to be carried out smoothly, continuously destroying one Bloodsword sect branch after another. Based on the current situation, the Bloodsword sect did not have enough experts to take care of the various branches. With the Bloodblade sect creating a diversion, they would definitely be able to expand their gains. If the Bloodsword sect lost half of their branches, they would have to withdraw their defensive forces. At that time, they would not be able to deal with Ji Tianxing. Left Emissary Jean reminded Ji Tianxing that he could prepare to leave the heavenly Snow County. Soon, he would be able to follow the elites of the Bloodblade sect into the Bloodsword sect's base. After reading the secret letter, Ji Tianxing casually crushed the jade slip into pieces. In fact, he already had a plan in mind, even without Left Emissary Jin's reminder. Evening. Ning Siyuan once again came to the Azure Pine courtyard to meet with Ji Tianxing. This time, she came openly. She did not hide herself, nor did she try to avoid arousing suspicion. After all, Ning Qinggang had just dealt with the rumor-mongering. Even if someone saw Ning Siyuan and Ji Tianxing interacting, they didn't dare talk about it. Ning Siyuan's complexion was quite good, and his eyes were brighter. This caused her appearance and temperament to become even more beautiful and noble. Ji Tianxing looked at her and nodded slightly. It seems that you have taken the medicine and the secret of cultivation on time. The effect is very good. Ning Siyuan hurriedly nodded his head in agreement. Full of joy, he said, "How can I not listen to the advice of a godly doctor like you? Moreover, I also want to finish off Heavenly Casualty earlier and break through to the Divine Lord realm as soon as possible." After discussing this matter, Ning Siyuan frowned slightly and said, "Heir Duanmu disappeared for a few days, and we don't know where he went. This morning, he sent someone to deliver a letter to the manor and left without saying goodbye." Ji Tianxing raised his eyebrows and asked knowingly, "Oh, his infatuation with you hasn't changed. Why would he leave without saying goodbye for no reason?" Ning Siyuan was also puzzled. "I was just about to ask you, did you teach him a lesson? He's not someone who retreats in the face of difficulties. If he hadn't suffered a serious blow, he would definitely have stayed in the Ning family for a long time." Ji Tianxing asked calmly, "I taught him a lesson? How is that possible?" "That's strange." Ning Siyuan was even more puzzled. He frowned and murmured, "If you didn't teach him a lesson, then why did he say in the letter that he had come to his senses and wouldn't bother me anymore? Also, he gave us his blessings." At the end, Ning Siyun lowered her head bashfully, and her voice was as soft as a mosquito's. Ji Tianxing pretended not to hear and said indifferently, "Perhaps he realized that you really have no feelings for him. No matter how much he pestered you, it was useless. Thus, he gave up and let go." Ning Siyun nodded. "And man, I hope so. If he could understand and retreat in the face of difficulties, that would be the best. After all, Annie loves him dearly and often spoils him. If our relationship with him is strained, Annie will be stuck in the middle and be in a difficult position." Then, she pleaded with Ji Tianxing sincerely, "Young Master Tianxing, I know that Crown Prince Duanmu is hedonistic and childish. He has offended you before. But please, for the sake of the Ning family, bear with him and don't bicker with him. If he really offended you, just give him a small punishment. Don't make him your enemy. Regarding this matter, the Ning family owes you another favor, okay?" Ji Tianxing said calmly, "Don't worry. He won't offend me again." How intelligent was Ning Siyun? Just this one sentence was enough to tell that something was amiss. She was even more certain that Ji Tianxing had taught Duanmu Xiong a lesson. But if Ji Tianxing didn't say anything, she wouldn't pursue the matter. She just bowed and said sincerely, "Thank you for your magnanimity, young Master Tianxing. The Ning family will remember this favor." "Let's not talk about this anymore." Ji Tianxing waved his hand and asked, "Ask your father when we can get the money." "This?" Ning Siyun hesitated and asked, "Young Master Tianxing, do you plan to leave after getting the money?" Ji Tianxing didn't hide it and nodded. Ning Siyun thought for a while and said, "Under normal circumstances, you have to wait a month for the goods to be delivered on time. But you definitely can't wait that long. How about this? I'll talk to my father and let the Ning family pay the money first." Although the Ning family had a strong foundation, they had to be careful with the flow of funds in hand. After all, the Ning family's business had to support so many people, and the turnover of business also required funds. Taking out a huge sum of 10 billion in one go was somewhat difficult. Ji Tianxing didn't say much and just nodded. "Okay, that's it. I'll go ask now." Ning Siyun didn't stay any longer and got up to leave. After leaving Pine Tree Courtyard, she went to find Ning Qinggang to discuss the matter. Not long after, she returned to Pine Tree Courtyard and reported the result with a face full of joy. "Young Master Tianxing, I told my father about this matter, and he agreed without hesitation. However, the Ning family doesn't have that much money. My father needs 2 days to raise the money." In fact, Ning Qinggang didn't agree without hesitation like she said. As the head of the Ning family, no matter how grateful he was to Ji Tianxing, he had to consider it thoroughly and couldn't make a decision on the spot. At that time, he only pondered for 2 breaths. In his heart, he weighed the pros and cons and how long it would take to raise the money before nodding. Ji Tianxing didn't care about these details, but he was satisfied with the answer. He nodded with a smile and said, 2 days? That's good. Thank you, Miss Ning." Ning Siyun showed a beautiful smile and shook her head. "That money originally belonged to you, so there's no need to thank me. On the other hand, I'm afraid I'll never be able to repay your kindness to me and the Ning family in this lifetime." These words were obscure and came from the bottom of her heart. But when a girl said these words, the subtext in her heart was often. Chapter 2958. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Ji Tianxing had been cultivating in the secret room. He only ended his cultivation when Ning Qinggang came to visit him on the morning of the 3rd day. The two met in the study room. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Ning Qinggang took out a black ring and handed it to Ji Tianxing. "Young Master Tianxing, the money that belongs to you is all in this interspatial ring. It's a total of 3 billion, most of which are divine stones. A small portion is exchanged for monarch-grade divine pills and various materials. In addition, there are 1 billion divine crystals. Take a look." Ji Tianxing was very satisfied with this result. He didn't need to check it and directly accepted the interspatial ring. "Thank you, family head Ning." Ning Qinggang nodded slightly and said with some reluctance, "Young Master Tianxing, Are you leaving now? Ji Tianqing nodded. Ning Qinggang sighed and said with some guilt, during the time you were in the Ning residence, I didn't do my duty as a host and entertain you well. Instead, it was you who helped the Ning family solve a few big problems. I will engrave such deep friendship in my heart. As long as you are in the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom, I will do my best to fulfill any request you have. Ji Tianqing smiled and said, let's skip the pleasantries and do as we wish. Ning Qinggang nodded in agreement. Yes, as we wish. Then, Ning Qinggang accompanied Ji Tianqing out of the pine tree courtyard. Ning Siyuan and the Ning family's elders and deacons also came to see them off. Everyone sat in a luxurious carriage and headed towards the South City Gate in a grandiose manner. Only when they were outside the city gate did the Ning family stop and respectfully send Ji Tianqing off. Ji Tianqing waved goodbye to everyone and stepped into the sky, flying all the way south. Until his figure disappeared, Ning Qinggang and the others were still looking up at the sky, unwilling to turn and leave. I know that he is a dragon in a pool and will soon soar to the sky and become famous in the world. But I always fantasize that I can keep this person and help the Ning family achieve unparalleled glory. Sigh, am I being too greedy? Ning Qinggang murmured in a low voice and let out a long sigh full of regret. Ning Siyuan nodded and said calmly, a mere Ning clan and a small Tianxue county cannot keep him. Even the Bloodfire Divine Kingdom might not be able to keep him here. I believe that his future stage will be in the Great Yin Empire and the entire Northern Heaven region. He's different from us. He is a true dragon that can laugh at the 9 heavens. Compared to him, we are just ordinary people. Ning Qinggang raised his eyebrows and comforted him with a smile. My daughter isn't bad either. Once Calamity is dealt with, she'll definitely be one of the top 10 geniuses in theocracy. If you were given another 10 years, you might be able to be like him. If your future achievements are high enough, perhaps you will meet him again. A faint smile flashed in Ning Siyuan's eyes as he muttered to himself, there's no need to wait for 10 years. We'll meet again in a month. Ning Qinggang glanced sideways at her. Seeing her expectant and emotional eyes, he couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He knew in his heart that his daughter and young master Tianqing wouldn't have a happy ending. However, as a father, it was fine if he didn't support his daughter, but how could he pour cold water on her? Furthermore, there was a trace of expectation in his heart. He hoped that a miracle would happen. If his daughter's wish was fulfilled, he would have no regrets in this life. After leaving the Tianxue County, Ji Tianqing summoned the Black Dragon. The Black Dragon carried him south. He sat cross-legged on the dragon's back and silently cultivated. The sun rose and the moon set. Day and night alternated. 5 days passed quickly. The Black Dragon left the Tianxue County and entered the Beiyuan County. This county's territory was more vast, and there were more fertile plains. The mountains and rivers were also more beautiful. Naturally, this county had more people and more experts and geniuses than the Tianxue County and the Tianfeng County. Even the number of merchants, trade, and sects had increased significantly. On this night, Ji Tianqing received another message from left emissary Jean. Young Master Tianqing, I heard that you have left the Tianxue County and are heading south. If I'm not wrong, you should be in the Beiyuan County. Coincidentally, our sect's elites will arrive in 3 days and destroy the Bloodsword sect's branch. I hope that young Master Tianqing can go and meet with our sect's 4th elder and give some pointers to our sect disciples. It wasn't hard for Ji Tianqing to guess left emissary Jin's thoughts. First, it had been half a month since the 2 sides agreed to cooperate. It had always been the Bloodsword sect taking action and Ji Tianqing doing nothing. The Bloodsword sect was also worried about Ji Tianqing's sincerity in cooperating. Second, left emissary Jean wanted to let Ji Tianqing see the strength of the Bloodsword sect's disciples and their combat ability. This way, he wouldn't underestimate the Bloodsword sect. As for the third reason, he probably wanted Ji Tianqing to have more contact with the Bloodsword sect. After familiarizing himself with them, it would be easier to get closer to them. Only in the future could he rope in Ji Tianqing to join the Bloodsword sect. Ji Tianqing clearly saw through these thoughts. Without thinking, he sent a message back to Left Emissary Jean. It was just a short sentence. Since Left Emissary Jean has invited me, then I will respectfully accept. Not long after, Left Emissary Jean sent a message back, telling him the location of the meeting and the secret signal. Ji Tianxing could hear that Left Emissary Jin's tone was filled with joy. He put away the jade strip and stopped contacting Left Emissary Jin. The Bloodsword sect's branch guarding the Baiyuan County is clearly outside the Baiyuan City. The meeting place isn't in the Baiyuan City. Instead, it's in a remote town hidden in the mountains 100,000 miles away. The Bloodsword sect's actions are indeed cautious. Ji Tianxing muttered to himself and got Black Dragon to speed up. Soon, 3 days had passed. On this evening, the setting sun was as red as blood. Black Dragon flew to the east of the Baiyuan City, a mountain range 100,000 miles away. When they were still a few thousand miles away from the remote town, Ji Tianxing put Black Dragon into the Divine Pagoda. He used the Armillary Heaven Secret technique to merge with the world and quietly rushed to the town. Along the way, he discovered a few scattered heavenly gods in the mountains around the town. They were all disguised as farmers gathering herbs and hunting beasts, moving between the mountains and rivers. In truth, those 7th-level heavenly gods were all spies and informants of the Bloodsword sect. Ji Tianxing hid his aura and was not discovered by anyone. Not long after, he arrived at the town, surrounded by mountains. He stood in the clouds and looked down at the town that was a dozen miles wide. This town was called Creek Town and was located in a valley surrounded by mountains. It was quiet and peaceful. There were only 1,000 or so families in the town. Most of them made a living by gathering herbs and hunting beasts. 3 clear rivers that originated from the surrounding mountains flowed through the town. The buildings in the town were also simple and ordinary. Only a few palaces were slightly more imposing. Ji Tianxing scanned the town with his spiritual sense and did not find anything unusual. Finally, his gaze landed on the east of the town, on the old grayish-white palace. That was the place where he met the Bloodsword sect. On the surface, it looked deserted. In truth, there were more than a dozen heavenly gods hiding in the dark. Chapter 2959. The people from Bloodblade sect had yet to arrive. Ji Tianxing stood in the sky and waited quietly. An hour later, the curtain of night fell. At this moment, a black shadow flew over from the distant mountains and approached Creek Town silently. The hazy black shadow was shaped like a black cloud and was a flying divine artifact. It was rather hidden in the dark and was not easy to be discovered. When it reached the sky above Creek Town, the black cloud stopped for a moment. It probably communicated with the spies in the old palace and confirmed that the situation was normal before it landed in the palace. The black cloud entered the palace. More than 60 figures immediately appeared. The leader was a hunchbacked old man with white hair and a white beard. He was dressed in a blood-red robe. He was a mid-level god monarch and had the strength of a 5th Heaven Realm expert. The other 60 people were dressed in black and wore skull masks with the symbol of Bloodblade embroidered on their chests. They were all elite disciples of Bloodblade sect and had the strength of 7th Heaven God Realm and above. Everyone stayed in the palace and remained silent and solemn. No one made any noise, and no one walked around casually. It was obvious that they were well trained. Therefore, Ji Tianxing quietly flew into the town and landed in the old palace. There was a divine array set up both inside and outside the palace. It could protect the palace and also prevent divine sense from probing. At this moment, the hunchbacked old man in a blood-red robe was questioning the leader of the scouts who guarded the palace. Jiang Wu, are there any abnormalities around Creek Town? The leader of the scouts was called Jiang Wu. He was a skinny young man in leather armor. He bowed respectfully and answered, reporting to 4th Elder, "This subordinate and a dozen brothers have been monitoring for 5 days and have not found any abnormalities. Our sect is very cautious in our actions, and we deliberately set up a deceptive formation to create a diversion. Bloodblade sect will definitely not expect our target to be here." 4th Elder nodded slightly and asked, Has the young master that left envoy, Jean, mentioned arrived? Jiang Wu shook his head and answered truthfully, no. Moreover, the brothers guarding outside the town have not seen any traces of him. Fourth elder nodded and said, in that case, that kid has not arrived yet. Let's hope that he is fast enough and can appear within 4 hours. If he exceeds this time limit, our operation will be delayed. Jiang Wu revealed a confident smile and said arrogantly, even if that kid doesn't come, it doesn't matter. With fourth elder personally taking action, as well as more than 60 senior and junior brothers, flattening the Northern Plains branch will naturally be an easy task. The fourth elder stroked his white beard and nodded with a smile. Of course. When left emissary Jean sent that kid to join us, he didn't expect him to help us. Left emissary Jean just wants that kid to watch the battle and see the strength of our Bloodblade sect. Jiang Wu grinned coldly and said, fourth elder, there's something I can't figure out. With our sect's strength and methods, defeating the Bloodsword sect isn't difficult. Even if we want to find helpers, only the top sects and forces are qualified to cooperate with us. What was left emissary Jean thinking? The collaborator he found for our sect is actually a nameless brat? The fourth elder pretended to be dignified and said, Jiang Wu, envoy Jean has his own reasons for doing things. When is it your turn to comment? Although that brat is nameless, he has killed a few divine monarchs and forced left emissary Jean to retreat with one move. He cannot be underestimated. Jiang Wu pretended to be terrified and admitted his mistake. However, he didn't think much of this matter and muttered with a mocking tone, that brat did kill a few divine monarchs. However, I don't believe that he forced left emissary Jean to retreat with one move. To be able to defeat left emissary Jean, he must be a high divine monarch. But how can there be such a young high divine monarch in this world? Could it be that left emissary Jean is cooperating with him and putting on a show? Many Bloodblade sect disciples nodded inwardly and agreed with Jiang Wu's words. Even the fourth elder didn't reprimand them. He only said indifferently, enough, this matter isn't something you should care about. It's fine if you think about it, but remember that trouble comes from the mouth. If left emissary Jean hears this, even I won't be able to protect you. Jiang Wu, the scouts, and many of the elite disciples all smiled knowingly. Without a doubt, these disciples and scouts in the palace were the fourth elder's trusted subordinates. The crowd no longer discussed Ji, Tianxing, and left emissary Jean. Instead, they discussed how to divide the wealth and resources after tonight's destruction of the Northern Plains branch. Although most of the wealth and resources had to be handed over to the sect, they didn't work hard. Of course, they wouldn't hand over everything. They would keep some treasures for themselves. This was a secret that everyone had a tacit understanding about, and no one would reveal it. The elders, the left and right emissaries, and the sect master of the Bloodblade sect couldn't punish the disciples for this. If they wanted the disciples to unite and be loyal to the sect, they had to give up some of the benefits. Just as the crowd was discussing fervently, a cold and indifferent voice suddenly resounded in the hall. Arrogant soldiers are bound to lose. These 4 words contained a powerful divine power that made everyone's divine souls tremble in fear. In an instant, the entire hall became so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Everyone was vigilant and looked around with sharp eyes. The fourth elder was the first to see a young man in a white robe standing on the steps in the north of the hall. This person was handsome and had a noble and dignified temperament. He was filled with a mysterious aura. He looked at the crowd expressionlessly with cold eyes. The fourth elder, Jiang Wu, and more than 60 elite disciples all stared at him. The disciples were in an uproar. They all took out their weapons and stared at the white-robed young man with murderous intent. A trace of fear flashed in Jiang Wu's eyes. He asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why are you here? Do you want to die?" The white-robed young man didn't say anything. He raised his right hand and grabbed at Jiang Wu from 100 steps away. A golden dragon claw appeared out of nowhere and grabbed Jiang Wu. Jiang Wu didn't have time to dodge or resist. He was crushed by the dragon claw. After a series of crackling sounds, he turned into a pile of meat paste and fell to the ground. Even his godhood was crushed and mixed with his flesh and blood. The scout leader, the ninth-level celestial deity Realm Jiangwu, was crushed to death by the white-robed youth in public just like that. From the beginning to the end, Jiangwu didn't even let out a scream. This scene caused everyone to widen their eyes in shock. Their hearts were filled with shock and anger. The white-robed young man looked as if he had crushed an ant. He still looked indifferent and said coldly, "The internal strife of the Bloodblade sect has nothing to do with me. However, I hate such scoundrels who sow discord and flatter others, so I kill them casually. If anyone is unhappy, you can complain to your sect master." When he said that, he looked sharply at the fourth elder. His meaning couldn't be more obvious. The fourth elder's body stiffened. He pointed at him with a trembling finger and said, You're Tianqing?" Without a doubt, the white-robed young man was Tianqing. He frowned slightly and said expressionlessly, "Since it's your first offense, I'll spare your life. If you call me by my name again, I'll kill you." Chapter 2960. In the Bloodblade sect, the fourth elder was also a respected elder. Even if it was Jeans was sure, he would not humiliate him in front of everyone because of his reputation. But now, the fourth elder was reprimanded and humiliated in public by an outsider. This was simply a great humiliation. The fourth elder was so angry that his face was ashen and his body trembled. He roared angrily, "You are only cooperating with our sect, not a member of our sect. What right do you have to meddle in our sect's affairs? What right do you have to kill our elite disciple without permission? You have no right to be arrogant in front of me." Many elite disciples finally came back to their senses. They glared at Tianqing and shouted with righteous indignation, echoing the fourth elder's words. "You are an outsider. What right do you have to meddle in our sect's affairs? Jiangwu is an elite disciple of our sect. He has made great contributions to our sect. If he really did something wrong, the elders in the left and right envoys should convict him and execute him in the torture hall. What right do you have to kill him without permission? Fourth elder is a doyen of virtue and prestige. You bastard, how dare you insult him? Why aren't you apologizing? Yes, we all demand that you apologize to the fourth elder. You must kneel down and apologize. Otherwise, we will jointly report to the sect leader and ask him to punish you." The more people there were, the more courage there was. With the fourth elder leading the resistance, more than 60 elite disciples forgot the fear that Tianqing brought to them and began to denounce him. The fourth elder was secretly proud. He looked at Tianqing with ridicule and said, "Ha, you arrogant and ignorant guy. You have angered everyone. No matter what relationship you have with Envoy Jean, you have no right to cooperate with our sect in the future." Tianqing's expression was still indifferent. He said, "I don't care about the Bloodblade sect. I just don't like some ugly faces, so I killed them. You'd better tell your disciples to be honest. Otherwise, I don't mind slaughtering them." Although his voice was not loud, it contained an invisible soul suppressing power. The fourth elder was intimidated. A strong aura of death lingered in his heart. His back was covered in cold sweat. He could clearly sense that Tianqing had enveloped him with an invisible pressure. If he dared to provoke him again, Tianqing would not hesitate to kill him. Most of the elite disciples also felt great fear. They smelled the danger of death and shut their mouths. However, there were still 7 elite disciples who were full of anger. They raised their arms and shouted, cursing Tianqing. Tianqing glanced at the crowd and waved his hand to release 7 purple poisonous gas. Whoosh! Swish! In the blink of an eye, 7 streaks of purple chi entered the bodies of the 7 disciples like lightning. Their shouts stopped abruptly, and their expressions froze on the spot. Under everyone's gaze, their vitality was cut off on the spot, and their bodies quickly decayed into pools of blood. Even their godhoods had been corroded to bits. He died in an instant. Another 7 souls were added to the hall. The 4th elder and the 60 elite disciples were all filled with fear, but they didn't dare to say anything. There was no other way. Tianqing's origin was mysterious. His strength was unfathomable, and his methods were ruthless and decisive. If there was a disagreement, He would directly kill without any reason. This was definitely a great demon who killed people like scything flax. Although the Bloodblade sect was a heretical sect, its disciples were not kind people. However, when they met Ji Tianxing, who was even stronger and more ruthless, they were scared half to death. How could they dare to be the first to act? No matter how angry and resentful they could only endure it. A wise man knows when to retreat. If they were directly killed like Jiang Wuhe and the 7 disciples, it would be an unjust death. Understanding this, the 4th elder and the disciples remained silent. The hall was deathly silent. Ji Tianxing saw that everyone was frightened and didn't dare to talk nonsense. He said slowly, "This monarch is not a member of the Bloodblade sect, so I don't care about anyone. This monarch only acts according to his preferences. If you don't want to die, be smart." After all, the 4th elder was an old fox. He quickly suppressed his anger and calmed down. He cupped his hands towards Ji Tianxing and said in a solemn tone, "No wonder young Master Tianxing can cooperate with our sect. Young Master is truly ruthless and decisive. This old man admires you greatly. Since we have already gathered here, we shouldn't waste time. We should carry out the mission as soon as possible. Before we depart, I wonder if young Master Tianxing has any advice?" Ji Tianxing's lips curled into a cold smile. "Aren't you confident that you can easily flatten the Northern Plains branch? Since that's the case, this monarch will secretly follow. I'll leave it to you to decide what to do." Hearing this, the 4th elder secretly let out a sigh of relief. Originally, he was worried that Ji Tianxing was too ruthless and tyrannical. He was most likely going to take over command. If he wasn't familiar with the situation and messed up his command, causing tonight's plan to fail, it would be difficult to explain. Fortunately, this guy still has some self-awareness. The 4th elder muttered in his heart. On the surface, however, he cupped his hands towards Ji Tianxing and said, "Many thanks for young Master Tianxing's trust. We definitely won't let you down." After saying this, he ordered the disciples to get ready. Then, he took out a pitch-black and ancient cloth banner and activated this divine artifact with a spell. Whoosh! The banner turned into a large mass of black mist, enveloping the 4th elder and the 60 elite disciples. Under the 4th elder's control, the black mist flew out of the palace and merged into the night, flying towards the south. Ji Tianxing also merged into the world and followed silently. Left Envoy Jean had said in the secret letter that the Northern Plains branch of the Bloodsword sect was located on Green Peak Mountain, 10,000 li south of the Northern Plains city. It was only 200,000 li away from Creek Town. With the 4th elder and Ji Tianxing's speed, they arrived in less than 2 hours. When they were still 1,000 li away from Green Peak Mountain, the group quietly stopped in the night sky and silently observed the situation. They saw that the 1,000-meter-tall Green Peak was brightly lit in the night. There was a wide plaza at the foot of the mountain. Not only were there guards patrolling, but there were also many people and caravans coming and going. At the end of the plaza was a wide, bluestone staircase that extended all the way to the summit. Halfway up the mountain, there were palaces and houses everywhere, and one could see people moving about. A radius of 20 li around the summit had been flattened. There were several dozen palaces on the flat ground, all of them dazzling and majestic. Ji Tianxing could estimate with just a few glances. There were at least 4,000 people stationed in this Northern Plains branch. Most of them were vassals of the Bloodsword sect, managing businesses in the mortal world. Even several hundred guards were recruited from the mortal world. There were only 20 or so true disciples of the Bloodsword sect, all of them people with great authority. In the 2 palaces on the summit, the 3 most respected lesser divine lords were the deacons of the Bloodsword sect. Ji Tianxing used his divine sense to scan Green Peak Mountain, but he didn't find anything strange. But for some reason, he vaguely felt that something was wrong. Before he could use his divine eye secret art to carefully scan the interior of Green Peak Mountain, the 4th elder had already rushed forward. The 4th elder could not wait any longer. He rode the black cloud and rushed to the top of the Green Peak. Obviously, He wanted to destroy this branch as quickly as possible to prove his strength to Ji Tianqing. End of chapter. Chapter 2961. If it had been anyone else, they would have charged in a green summit mountain so recklessly. Ji Tianqing would have warned them. But the fourth elder and the 60 elite disciples feared and hated Ji Tianqing. Previously in Creek Town, these people were ruthlessly humiliated, and their hearts were filled with anger. They only wanted to charge into Green Summit Mountain and start a massacre. They wanted to vent their anger and murderous intent, and to prove their strength to Ji Tianqing. The elite disciples of the Bloody Blade sect could not be humiliated. So Ji Tianqing chose to remain silent and did not warn the fourth elder. He also wanted to let the fourth elder know what it meant to be short-sighted and short-sighted. Whoosh! A moment later, the black cloud flew across the night sky and rushed to the peak of Green Summit Mountain. Whoosh! Whoosh! The black cloud landed in the middle of the palace, and the figures of the fourth elder and the 60 elite disciples immediately appeared. Many disciples drew their swords and sabers. They formed teams of 10 and charged into the surrounding palaces. As long as they saw someone, they would attack. The fourth elder was not in a hurry to attack. He first used an ancient banner, which turned into a black cloud that covered the entire Green Summit Mountain. Whoosh! Suddenly, Green Summit Mountain was isolated from the outside world and covered in thick darkness. The thousands of people on the mountain saw that there were experts invading and immediately cried out in alarm. The weaker ones hid in their palaces as quickly as possible. Many guards and Sky God Realm gods took out their weapons and formed a battle formation, waiting for the leader's orders. The peace of Green Summit Mountain was broken, and the people of the Northern Plains branch were in chaos. The disciples of the Bloody Blade sect took the opportunity to charge and kill in the 6 palaces. They were unstoppable. Rumbles and screams could be heard from the top of the mountain. In a short while, hundreds of people were killed by the disciples of the Bloody Blade sect. The fourth elder took out a blood-colored spear and released an earth-shaking power that covered the entire mountain peak. The power of a mid-level divine lord was like an invisible giant hand that tightly gripped the necks of countless people, making it difficult for them to breathe. Soon, 2 figures rushed out of the main palace and attacked the fourth elder from the left and right. Where did this bastard come from? How dare he invade our branch? A beast from the Bloodblade sect? Let's fight them to the death. The 2 purple-robed powerhouses were both low-level divine lords. Clearly, they were deacons who guarded the Northern Plains branch. The 2 of them wielded a pair of sabers and a divine sword. Saber light and sword shadows filled the sky as they engaged in a fierce battle with the fourth elder. Pung pung pung. A deafening sound reverberated in the night sky. Many divine spells collided fiercely in the night sky, bursting out violent shockwaves. Both sides had only exchanged a few blows, and the 2 lower divine lords were repelled. The devastating shockwave caused the surrounding palaces to collapse, turning them into ruins. There were even dozens of guards and maids who were killed on the spot by the shockwave. The battle had just begun, but the Northern Plains branch had already suffered heavy casualties. The Bloodblade sect's disciples became even more ferocious as they charged forward. At this time, more than 20 experts rushed out from the many palaces on the mountain peak. The one in the lead was a 2nd-level divine, Lord Realm, purple-robed old man. He was also one of the Northern Plains branch's 3 deacons. He charged at the fourth elder without any regard for his own safety and worked together with 2 other companions to barely block the fourth elder's attacks. The other 20 experts were all elite disciples of the Bloodsword sect. Their strength was the same as the Bloodblade sect's disciples, at the 7th level of the Sky God Realm. They went to reinforce the palaces and temporarily blocked the Bloodblade sect's disciples. The situation entered a temporary stalemate. The Bloodblade sect's disciples were trapped in the 6 palaces and could not gather together. If it was in the past, the fourth elder would not have acted so rashly. He would personally lead 60 experts to kill all the experts in the branch one by one. Then he would clean up the mess. However, tonight was different. He only wanted to destroy the Northern Plains branch as quickly as possible. The result: the Northern Plains branch seemed to have been prepared and managed to stop the Bloodblade sect's attacks. 100 breaths of time quickly passed. Although the Bloodblade sect's elite disciples had killed more than 20 Bloodsword sect's in-name disciples, they had paid a heavy price. However, they also paid a heavy price. 8 people died on the spot, and more than 10 disciples were injured. If the stalemate continued, the Bloodblade sect might not be able to win. Even if they could destroy the Northern Plains branch, they would have to pay a heavy price. It was very likely that all 60 of their elite disciples would die here. Seeing this, the fourth elder was secretly anxious. He no longer held back and used all his strength to attack the 3 Bloodsword sect's deacons. Illusory Blood, Sacred Blade. Blood Sea, Burning Heaven Slash. Instantly, the mountain peak lit up with a bloody light that soared into the sky. 6 huge blood blades appeared one after another. The 3 Bloodsword sect's deacons were forced to work together to defend and retreat. They began to vomit blood, and their strength quickly faded. Seeing this, the fourth elder regained his confidence and roared in an imposing manner. Bastards of the Bloodsword sect, stop resisting and obediently accept your deaths. After saying this, he used a secret art to forcefully stimulate his potential. He erupted with 120% of his strength and sent out 3 blood god strikes at the 3 deacons. The 3 deacons could only take out their life-saving divine artifacts and borrow the power of the protective array to resist the fourth elder's attacks. Rumble! A deafening explosion occurred on the mountain peak, causing the entire Green Peak mountain to tremble. The life-saving divine artifacts of the 3 deacons were all shattered into pieces. They were sent flying and fell into the ruins with blood spurting out of their 7 orifices. The fourth elder was somewhat exhausted, but he was in a good mood as he laughed arrogantly and confidently. But at this moment, a wisp of black smoke flew out of the Green Peak mountain and instantly arrived behind the fourth elder. The fourth elder had just sensed the danger and didn't have time to dodge. The wisp of black smoke turned into a thin, purple-haired old man who held a strange black serrated sword in each hand and stabbed the fourth elder with lightning speed. Poof! With a muffled sound, the 2 serrated swords pierced through the fourth elder's robe and soft armor, piercing through his back and sticking out of his chest. The fourth elder let out a muffled groan as black blood gushed out of his nose and mouth. His body stiffened, and his expression was ugly and painful. Lowering his head to look at the tip of the sword in his chest, his eyes suddenly widened, revealing an extremely shocked expression. The right guardian of the Bloodsword sect, God Monarch Black Flame? Roaring, he struggled to break free from the serrated swords and teleported 10 miles away before turning to look at the purple-haired old man. Bloody holes were left on his chest and back, penetrating from front to back. Black blood continuously flowed out. The fourth elder didn't feel any pain as he stared at the purple-haired old man in shock and yelled, "It really is you. Why are you ambushing me here?" Originally, he was full of confidence and victory was in his grasp. But the right guardian of the Bloodsword sect had appeared, and he had been ambushed and seriously injured. While this made him feel shocked, he also had a premonition that tonight's plan was going to fail. End of chapter. Chapter 2962. God Monarch He Yin was the 3rd strongest person in Bloodsword sect. He was even stronger than the Left Protector. 100 years ago, he had broken through to the 7th stage and became a God Monarch. Even if fourth elder was not injured, he was not God Monarch He Yan's match. Moreover, he had been injured by God Monarch He Yan's sneak attack. The 2 strange sawtooth swords also contained deadly poison. Fourth elder's organs and blood had been corroded by the poison and were rotting rapidly. God Monarch He Yin stared at him sharply and laughed sinisterly. "Bloodblade sect's bastard, I've been waiting for you for 2 days. Do you think our sect's spies and informants are just for show? Bloodblade sect has destroyed several of our sect's branches. Do you really think we're not prepared? Tonight, you and your 60 lackeys will all be buried here." After saying that, God Monarch He Yin waved his hand at the 3 purple-robed deacons. The three deacons immediately understood and rushed to the surrounding palaces to deal with the elite disciples of Bloodblade sect. Fourth Elder would be dealt with by God Monarch Yin. Three lower God Monarch level deacons against the elite disciples of Bloodblade sect would definitely be a one-sided massacre. It was foreseeable that Bloodblade sect's plan would fail. Very soon, Fourth Elder and dozens of elite disciples would be killed. Thinking of this, Fourth Elder's eyes dimmed and despair surged in his heart. He stared angrily at God Monarch Yin and sneered. He. Although we have been cautious and concealed our information, we have still underestimated Bloodblade sect's intelligence network. Not only did they know that our sect was going to take action, they also guessed that the target was the Northern Plains branch. God Monarch Yin, how many spies have you planted in our sect? What is the position of the spy with the highest position? On the surface, his fighting spirit had disappeared and he was pessimistic and desperate. But in reality, he was silently healing himself and suppressing the poison in his body. He would not give up until the last moment. God Monarch Yin revealed a disdainful expression and sneered. Little bastard, are you out of your mind? This is our sect's biggest secret. Why would we tell you? The Fourth Elder didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled helplessly and said, I wasn't your opponent in the first place, and I was injured by your Devourer's sword and poisoned by 10 flames. No matter what, I won't be able to survive tonight's battle. Since I'm going to die anyway, why don't you tell me so that I can rest in peace? Sir Godhei Yin raised his eyebrows and said with a playful smile, You know yourself well. It's a pity that your little trick can't fool me. Trying to stall for time with me? You still want to circulate your chi to cure your poison and obtain our sect's secrets? Ha! You're too naive. Since you're a dead man, there's no need for you to know that secret. You can die in peace. Sir Godhei Yin swung his God Devourer dual swords and slashed out dozens of pitch-black sword lights at the Fourth Elder. The Fourth Elder's plan was exposed, and he could no longer delay the battle. He could only fight with all his strength. Blood waves break the sky. He cast his divine power with all his might, releasing a blood wave that was 1,000 feet tall. It surged towards God Monarch Black Inferno like a giant dragon. However, the billowing blood wave was immediately defeated by the sword light. The Fourth Elder cast a few more divine powers, but they were all defeated by God Monarch Black Inferno easily. 20 breaths later, God Monarch Black Inferno flew across the night sky and teleported in front of the Fourth Elder. He swung his God Devourer dual swords and slashed. The Fourth Elder's power was weak, and the poison in his body was triggered. As he saw the sword light slashing down, he wanted to dodge, but he couldn't. Crack! Following a crisp cracking sound, a God Devourer sword struck his left shoulder. His left shoulder was instantly severed, and his entire left arm flew out. Black blood spurted out from the wound. The Fourth Elder flew out and crashed into the ruins dozens of miles away. He let out a miserable shriek. Countless bricks and dust buried him. He struggled in a wretched state, and his heart was filled with despair and helplessness. Damn it, I'm no match for God Monarch Black Inferno. He would be able to kill me within 100 moves at most. That damn Tianqing, where is he? My disciples and I are about to be killed. Why hasn't he shown himself? Isn't he cooperating with our sect? Isn't he arrogant and conceited? He even defeated Left Emissary Jean with one move. His power is comparable to a high-level Sir God's. Why is he acting like a coward when facing God Monarch Black Inferno? In despair, the Fourth Elder still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. He knew that Ji Tianqing was hiding in the darkness and watching the battle silently. At that moment, he hoped that Ji Tianqing could take action and deal with God Monarch Black Inferno. He didn't hope to defeat God Monarch Black Inferno. As long as he could block him, he would have a chance to survive. However, God Monarch Black Inferno charged over again. The Fourth Elder looked around, but he still didn't see Ji Tianqing. Bang, 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 bang. Both parties exchanged 2 moves, and there was a deafening bang. There was a resplendent, 5-colored divine light. The Fourth Elder flew out again. Blood spurted out from his 7 orifices, and his body was soaked in blood. He smashed into the ruins again and was buried under the ground by the broken walls. He was even more desperate and helpless. He prayed even more urgently for Ji Tianxing to appear. At that moment, Ji Tianxing's divine sense voice suddenly rang in his mind. Didn't you want to lead the disciples to achieve something? Didn't you want to destroy the Northern Plains branch in the shortest time possible to prove your ability? I've been watching. Why didn't you complete the task and end up in such a sorry state? The fourth elder was so angry that he trembled and coughed violently. He looked around and searched, but he still didn't see Ji Tianxing. In anger, he could only reply with divine sense. What's the point of saying this now? Are you going to sit by and watch me and my disciples get killed? Ji Tianxing's voice came, and he said indifferently, although I can kill God Monarch Black Inferno and flatten Green Summit Mountain in an instant, I don't care. Your life and death have nothing to do with me. The fourth elder was so depressed that he vomited blood. He roared angrily. You signed an alliance agreement with our sect. We are allies. You can't just watch us die. Ji Tianxing sneered. I came here tonight just to supervise the battle and inspect your combat strength. Everyone is well aware of this. The fourth elder was speechless. Before he left, the vice sect master and left emissary Jean gave him this task. However, he wasn't willing to die just like that, and he forcefully endured the humiliation and rage as he asked via voice transmission. Then what exactly do you want before you can act? Ji Tianxing said with an indifferent tone, apologize to me and beg me with all your heart. If your attitude is good enough, maybe I will save your life. You just want me to apologize? Is that true? The fourth elder looked astonished. He couldn't believe it. He had a premonition that Ji Tianxing would use this opportunity to blackmail him. He had to pay a heavy price for Ji Tianxing to save his life. But he didn't expect that Ji Tianxing didn't make excessive demands, nor did he take advantage of the situation to ask for treasures. He just sincerely apologized. No problem. Chapter 2963. The fourth elder wasn't a gentleman. He didn't think it was shameful to apologize to Ji Tianxing. As long as he could survive, he was willing to do anything, no matter how embarrassing it was. Not only him, but the entire Crimson Blade sect was the same. They were unorthodox and unscrupulous. They didn't care about self-respect or reputation. Surviving was the most important thing. As he dodged Sir Godhei Yan's attack, he transmitted his voice to Ji Tianxing. Mr. Tianxing, I didn't recognize an expert and offended you. Now that I've seen your power and skills, I'm convinced and I don't dare to be disrespectful. The mission tonight was related to dozens of lives and the glory of the Crimson Blade sect. Young Master Tianheng, please be magnanimous and forgive me and those brats for our ignorance and offense. Please save our lives. If we can survive and complete the mission, I'll be very respectful to you. In the future, I will definitely be respectful to you and follow your lead. The fourth elder was seriously injured, and he had to dodge Sir Godhei Yan's attack. It wasn't easy for him to say that clearly at the moment of life and death. Even if his tone wasn't sincere, it was understandable. Although he made it sound nice, it was true. However, in his heart, he wanted to add another sentence at the end of his sentence. After you save us, kill Sir Godhei Yan and flatten Green Summit Mountain, what I said will count. Of course, he only dared to think about it in his heart, and he didn't dare to show it. Ji Tianxing transmitted his voice to him. Since you're sincere, I'll give you a chance to survive. The fourth elder saw that Jian Wushuang finally agreed to help, and he was overjoyed. There was hope in his heart. Thank you, Mr. Tianxing, for your kindness. The fourth elder was about to thank Jian Wushuang, but Sir Godhei Yan attacked him like a ghost and stabbed his thigh. He was distracted and couldn't dodge in time. His right thigh was pierced by the God Devourer's sword. Black blood spurted out from the wound, and his bones were broken. Under the intense pain, the fourth elder let out a miserable cry. Sir Godhei Yan took the opportunity to attack. He waved his two swords, and a black light covered the fourth elder. It seemed that the fourth elder had nowhere to hide, and was about to be minced into meat paste by the sword light. Just at this critical moment, Yi Zichen's eyes lit up. In the night sky behind the fourth elder, a sacred golden light suddenly lit up, and a mighty divine power burst forth. A mountain-sized, illusory image of a dragon and elephant, carrying the power to destroy everything, fiercely slammed into the black light that filled the sky. Boom! Amidst a deafening explosion, the hundreds of pitch-black sword lights were shattered. The draconic elephant divine fist power didn't decrease, and it blasted toward Sir God Yen. Faced with the sudden change, Sir God Black Flame was astonished. He had not expected it. At the critical moment, he hurriedly waved his two swords, forming a wall in front of him with hundreds of sword lights. Boom! The draconic elephant divine fist collided with a wall of sword light with a thunderous boom. The golden light fist shadow and the black light sword wall collapsed at the same time, rolling up a destructive hurricane that spread out in all directions. The fourth elder was sent flying. He took the opportunity to retreat to the edge of the mountain peak. He hid in a dark place and took some pills to suppress his injuries. Sir God Black Flame was also sent flying back thousands of feet. He looked around in shock, and his eyes were extremely solemn. He held the God Devourer sword with both hands, one in front of him and the other pointing to the ground. He was fully alert. The bastards of the Bloody Blade sect still have a trump card? The person who attacked must be an upper-level Sir God. Who was in the Bloody Blade sect? Sir God Black Flame frowned as he thought to himself. However, his divine consciousness searched the entire Green Summit Mountain, but he couldn't find the upper-level Sir God. At this moment, in a palace not far away, there was suddenly a burst of five-color divine light that fluctuated with dozens of nomological powers. Boom! A huge five-colored mushroom cloud rose from the palace and lit up the entire Green Summit Mountain. Sir God Black Flame was shocked, and he hurriedly released his divine consciousness to check the situation. He saw that the palace had been razed to the ground and turned into a brick ruin. Within the palace, dozens of elite disciples of the Bloodsword sect and hundreds of branch guards had been killed. Even a purple-robed deacon was killed on the spot, and his godhead shattered into dozens of pieces. On the other hand, the Bloodblade sect disciples had retreated unscathed. God Monarch Black Flame discovered that a white-robed young man had taken away the deacon's godhead fragment in the midst of the chaos and disappeared. Who is that white-robed youth? He doesn't seem to be from the Bloody Blade sect. He seems to be a god of a foreign race. Sir God Black Flame didn't recognize humans. There were no humans in the entire Great Yin Empire. To him, Ji Tianxing was a foreign race, just as Sir God Black Flame was thinking. In another palace 10 miles away, there was another burst of five-color divine light that covered the sky. Dense pillars of divine lightning blended with the golden sword light and bombarded the entire palace. Sir God Black Flame's thoughts were interrupted, so he released his divine consciousness to check. He saw that the palace had also been blasted to pieces. Dozens of disciples of the Bloodsword sect and dozens of guards had been killed and turned to ashes. The leading purple-robed deacon had also died without a complete corpse. Only a few pieces of charcoal were left. His godhead flew into the night sky and tried to escape. The white-robed young man teleported tens of thousands of zhang away and easily caught up. He grabbed the godhead and crushed it to pieces. After putting away the godhead fragment, he rushed to the third palace. There, the third purple-robed deacon was leading 5 disciples of the Bloodsword sect to attack more than 20 disciples of the Bloody Blade sect. After the white-robed youth arrived, he used his left hand to grab the disciples of the Bloody Blade sect and threw them out of the palace. He formed a sword seal with his right hand and sent out hundreds of 5-colored swords that covered the entire palace. Sir God Black Flame could clearly sense that each sword contained more than 30 types of law power. They were extremely mysterious and powerful. His eyes widened as he roared inwardly. It's him. He's the Bloody Blade sect's backup. He's the high-ranked divine lord who attacked just now. Sir God Black Flame suddenly understood. He teleported over without hesitation and tried to stop the white-robed youth. However, he was still one step too late. Boom, boom, boom. A series of loud noises erupted, shaking the heavens. The palace was destroyed on the spot, and only a deep hole was left in the ground. The purple-robed administrator and several disciples of the Bloodsword sect had all been crushed to pieces. Even their godheads were smashed into pieces by the sword light. When Sir God Blackflame arrived, the white-robed youth had just put away the godhead fragment of the purple-robed deacon. Whoosh! Sir God Blackflame stopped in the night sky, 3,000 feet away from the white-robed youth. He glared at the white-robed youth. "Little bastard, who are you? Why are you in cahoots with the Bloody Blade sect?" Sir God Blackflame was infuriated, and his heart ached. He watched with his own eyes as 3 deacons and more than 20 elite disciples were killed by the white-robed young man. He had done nothing and was unable to stop the white-robed youth. This made him feel extremely guilty, ashamed, and infuriated. If he did not tear the white-robed youth to pieces, he would not be able to get rid of the hatred in his heart. The white-robed youth looked at him indifferently and smiled. He said playfully, "Doesn't the Bloodsword sect hate me the most and do everything they can to deal with me? I'm right in front of you, but why can't you, the Right Protector, recognize me?" Sir God Blackflame was stunned for a moment before he reacted. His expression changed. "It's you." End of chapter. Chapter 2964. It's you. Qingshan City's Qi family's consecrator, the human youth Tianxing. God Monarch He Yin glared at Ji Tianxing with resentment as he gnashed his teeth. "That's right, it's me." Ji Tianxing nodded with a cold smile. Although he wasn't the strongest opponent of the Bloodsword sect, he was definitely the most hated and humiliated enemy of the Bloodsword sect. An unknown consecrator of a small family actually made the powerful Bloodsword sect suffer. Moreover, they even lost a protector and 2 elders. Losing 3 mid-level god monarchs in a row was a huge blow to the Bloodsword sect. In particular, the Bloodsword sect's reputation and prestige suffered a heavy blow. Otherwise, the Bloodblade sect wouldn't have dared to attack and destroy the various branches of the Bloodsword sect. Therefore, the people of the Bloodsword sect wanted to kill Ji Tianxing even in their dreams. God Monarch He Yin glared at Ji Tianxing and roared, "Little bastard, we've been looking for an opportunity to kill you, but you hid in the Ning family and didn't show yourself. Now, you finally left the Tianxue County and joined the Bloodblade sect. You're courting death." Ji Tianxing shook his head and said indifferently, "I'm still a free man and haven't joined any sect. The Bloodsword sect wants to get rid of me, so I can only destroy them first. Coincidentally, the Bloodblade sect also wants to get rid of you, so they sent an envoy to negotiate with me. In the end, we reached an agreement. So that's how it is." God Monarch He Yin finally understood. He grinned and said, "Unfortunately, even if you find the Bloodblade sect to back you up, you won't be able to escape death. Not only you, but even the Bloodblade sect will be destroyed by me sooner or later." Ji Tianxing frowned and said indifferently, "You don't have much ability, but you talk big. Tonight, you'll be buried here and won't live to see the sun tomorrow." God Monarch He Yin was fearless and even laughed confidently. "Ha ha! I've long heard that you're arrogant and lawless. Now that I see it, it's true. Unfortunately, no matter how arrogant you are, it's useless. Tonight, the one who will be smashed to pieces is you." As he spoke, Sir God He Yin swung the 2 God Devourer swords and released a vast amount of divine power. Swish, swish. Thousands of streaks of black divine power drilled into Green Peak Mountain. Immediately, a mountain protection formation that had been hidden for a long time was activated. Shwa! A blood-red light barrier that blotted out the sky appeared, enveloping the entire Green Summit Mountain and sealing off the area within a radius of 300 miles. This was a monarch-grade high-grade divine formation. It released a formless pressure that suppressed Ji Tianxing, the 4th elder, and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect. Everyone felt that it was difficult to move a single step. Their blood vessels were almost frozen, and they could not use even half of their power. The 4th elder and the 40 or so surviving disciples of the Bloodblade sect had already gathered together. Just now, the disciples had advised the 4th elder to leave the place quickly, while Ji Tianxing was dealing with Sir Godhei Yin. It didn't matter if they failed the mission. They didn't want to stay here and get killed by God Monarch Black Flame. However, the fourth elder did not listen to the disciples' advice and insisted on staying. He and the other disciples hid at the edge of the battlefield, healing themselves while watching the battle. However, no one had expected Sir Godhei Yin to activate another mountain protection formation. Moreover, it was a monarch grade high, grade divine formation. The disciples of the Bloodblade sect suddenly changed their expressions and started discussing. Oh my God, there's actually another formation hidden in Green Peak Mountain? The power of this great formation is so strong. I feel that I can't move. I can't fight anymore. Fourth Elder, we told you to leave as soon as possible, but you didn't listen. Now, we can't escape even if we want to. Sigh, not only will that kid die, but we will all die here. The disciples were pessimistic and in despair. The fourth elder's expression was also uncertain. His eyes were grave. He was silent for a while. Then he used voice transmission to persuade everyone, since we're going to die anyway, why don't we recuperate first? At the critical moment, let's give him a hand and join forces to kill the enemy. The disciples didn't say anything, which meant that they agreed with him. Just then, Ji Tianqing looked at the blood-red light dome that covered the sky and asked calmly, God Emperor Hei Yin, is this what you rely on? The source of your confidence? What other trump cards do you have? Use them all. Otherwise, it will be too late. It was just a monarch grade high-grade divine formation. It was not like he had not deciphered it before. It was just a little troublesome and would take some time. You are really arrogant. Sir Godhei Yin sneered and pointed at Green Peak Mountain. He said, in the belly of the mountain, there is a teleportation formation. Just now, I have activated the teleportation formation. The other side of the formation is connected to Highland County in the south. This time, the Bloodblade sect purposely sent a group of disciples to sneak into Highland County and pretend to attack the branch. Hence, the sect sent 2 middle-level Sir Gods to guard the Highland County branch. Then, Sir Godhei Yin sneered proudly. The 2 Sir Gods will be here soon. It is not too late for you to admit defeat and surrender. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and said playfully, building a teleportation formation in the Northern Plains branch to connect to the Highland County branch thousands of miles away? This is a good idea. Although it will consume a lot of resources, it will allow the 2 counties to keep in touch and help each other. I have to say that I did not expect this. You have brought me a little surprise. Then, he turned to look at the hiding place of the fourth elder and the others. He said in a dignified tone, did you hear that? Go back and tell your sect master to learn from him. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect looked pale and strange. They had lost their fighting spirit and were prepared to be defeated. They had not expected Sir Godhei Yin to have a backup plan. He had brought 2 powerful helpers from Highland County. This time, everyone was doomed. There was no doubt about it. However, they had not expected that Ji Tianqing was not only not worried, but was also in the mood to joke. Sir Godhei Yin was also surprised. He asked Ji Tianqing with a smile, Kid, you are about to die. Are you still going to hold on? This is my trump card. It is not a surprise for you, but a nightmare. Ji Tianqing smiled disdainfully and said proudly, I am invincible. Do as you please. Tonight, no matter how many people from the Bloodblade sect come, I will kill them all. Then he stopped talking nonsense with Sir Godhei Yin and used his trump card with all his might. Celestial Dragon, Overlord Body, Sky-destroying sword formation. Then, a dragon roar that could pierce gold and crack stone resounded through the universe. Ji Tianqing's body glowed with golden light and instantly turned into a 10,000 feet tall war god in golden armor. He formed a mysterious sword formation with his hands and pointed to the sky with one hand and the ground with the other. Swoosh! Thousands of giant divine swords descended from the sky and passed through the mountain protection array to seal off the entire green summit mountain. Swish! 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 A dazzling golden sword formation was formed. A peerlessly powerful divine might nullified the suppression of the Grand Mountain protecting formation, and a peerlessly terrifying sword intent swept toward all of the Blood Sword sect members. End of chapter. Chapter 2965. Within the Sky, Destroying Sword Array. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect felt the pressure on them decrease greatly. Seeing the sky filled with divine sword lights and feeling the mighty divine might, they were filled with awe. Everyone hid in a corner and looked up at Ji Tianxing in the sky, their eyes filled with anticipation. But God Lord Black Flame, the hundreds of guards, and the 2,000 lackeys of the Bloodsword sect had a different feeling. The sword array released a supreme divine might that suppressed them. It made it difficult for them to move, and their bloodlines were frozen. Their fighting strength was greatly reduced. The sword intent that was everywhere pierced their divine souls and disintegrated their willpower. The formless sword intent was extremely terrifying. In less than 10 breaths of time, over 1,000 lackeys of the Bloodsword sect fell to the ground and died. Their bodies were unharmed, but their godheads were shattered, and their divine souls were destroyed by the sword intent. Then, many black armor guards died on the spot. These ordinary heavenly gods and true gods couldn't withstand the sword intent of the sky, destroying sword array. Seeing so many guards and subordinates die, God Lord Black Flame's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect were so excited that their blood was boiling. Everyone looked at Ji Tianxing with burning eyes and exclaimed in disbelief. Heavens! How can the sword formation he executed be so powerful to such an extent? The sword array hasn't even been activated yet. It's only releasing the formless sword intent, yet it can kill so many guards? Such a powerful sword array has to be at least high-grade monarch grade and would take 3 to 5 days to complete. But he can use it with a wave of his hand. How'd he do it? No wonder Left Envoy Jean wants to cooperate with him on behalf of our sect. I understand now. Such a terrifying expert. Fortunately, our sect cooperated with him and didn't become his enemy. Previously, these disciples of the Bloodblade sect had some conflict and hatred for Ji Tianxing. But now, they had personally witnessed Ji Tianxing's powerful means. Seeing him easily kill so many lackeys of the Bloodsword sect, they were convinced by his strength and felt a bit more approval for him. At this moment, Ji Tianxing controlled the sword array with his divine will and controlled thousands of divine giant swords to attack the Green Peak sect. Swish! Swish! The sword light crisscrossed, wantonly cutting and stabbing, covering the entire Green Summit Mountain. Pung pung pung. A series of muffled sounds rang out, reverberating in the sky. The mountain peak shook violently. Dirt and rocks flew everywhere. Numerous craters and ravines were blasted out. Countless houses and palaces were reduced to rubble and ruins under the bombardment of the giant sword. The Green Summit Mountain guards and disciples who were fleeing in panic were also smashed into pieces by the sword light. Their flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Ji Tianxing wanted to destroy the entire Qingfeng Mountain. Sir Godhei Yin was infuriated. His eyes were bloodshot as he roared and swung his god-devouring dual swords to attack. Damned beast! I'll tear you apart. The god-engulfing dual swords glowed with a cold black light as 18 heaven and earth, splitting giant blades, slashed toward Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was fearless. He held the sword of Burial of Heaven and launched a counterattack. Duan Yu, Sun Shatter. The sword of Burial of Heaven, which was several hundred feet long, stabbed out dozens of giant swords, erupting with the power of more than 40 laws. Pung pung pung. The 5-colored giant sword and the pitch-black sword light clashed, creating a huge explosion and countless fragments of divine light. An incomparably violent shockwave spread out in all directions. Immediately, the peak of Green Summit Mountain was flattened and lowered by nearly 100 feet. Another 200 or so bodyguards and 500 or so branch cult members were killed by the aftermath of the battle. Sir Godhei Yan's attack was neutralized, unable to injure Ji Tianxing. He became even more furious and unwilling. He swung his dual swords again and attacked Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing also used all his strength to meet the attack. They were locked in a fierce battle in the sky. At the same time, the heaven-vanquishing sword array activated on its own. Thousands of sacred sword lights danced in the sky, wantonly slaughtering the people of the Bloodsword sect. With each passing second, dozens of guards and sect members were torn to pieces by the sword lights, dying on the spot. Green Summit Mountain could not bear the burden. It was torn apart and on the verge of collapse. The situation became even worse. Sir Godhei Yin attacked Ji Tianxing with all his might, but it was to no avail. Instead, he was held back by Ji Tianxing and had no time to save the guards and sect members, leading to the imminent destruction of Green Summit Mountain. Sir Godhei Yin was filled with grief and indignation, but there was nothing he could do. Hundreds of houses and buildings on the mountain peak were destroyed. Even the storehouses that stored large amounts of resources were reduced to rubble. More than half of the 2,000 sect members were dead or injured. Only 1,000 people were left, and they were still fleeing and hiding. More than 500 of the 600 guards had been slaughtered. The remaining 100 guards were scared out of their wits. They frantically fled into the mountain peak to hide. As for the fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect, they hid in the shadows and watched the battle for a while. They were somewhat impatient. Ji Tianxing alone had turned Green Summit Mountain upside down. He looked mighty and domineering when he was on a killing spree. The people of the Bloodblade sect respected and admired him. They could not let him take all the credit. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect would not miss the opportunity to take advantage of the situation. As a result, the fourth elder led his disciples and rushed out, aggressively attacking the guards and followers of the branch. The surviving guards and sect members were already frightened out of their wits and had lost their will to fight. Faced with the attack of the fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect, they could not resist at all and were slaughtered. Very quickly, 100 seconds passed. Green Summit Mountain had completely collapsed. More than half of it had collapsed. Gravel and dust filled the sky. More than 90% of the guards and sect members of the branch had been slaughtered. Only a few dozen guards and more than 100 sect members were left. They were all seriously injured and were scattered all over the battlefield. Some people were buried under the rubble and were on their last breaths. Some people hid deep underground and prayed that the battle would end soon. Some people were running around like headless flies and could not find a safe place to hide. The fourth elder and the disciples of the Bloodblade sect were in a good mood. They killed to their heart's content. Sir Godhei Yin and Ji Tianxing were still fighting fiercely. Of course, Sir Godhei Yin was fighting with Jian Wushuang while blocking the attacks of the Sky Punishment Sword Formation. It was really difficult for him to take care of both sides. Not only had he used up a lot of his divine power, but his fighting power had also weakened rapidly. He was also seriously injured. There were wounds and bloody holes on his chest and back. Blood kept flowing out and soaked his robe. His face was covered in blood and looked even more ferocious and terrifying. The anger in his heart had already reached its peak and was about to explode. He knew that Green Summit Mountain was about to be destroyed and the Northern Plains branch was finished. He could not stop Ji Tianxing alone, nor could he kill him. He could only pray that the two Sir God from Highland County would come to help as soon as possible. They should be here soon. Sir Godhei Yin shouted in his heart. He was anxious and could not wait. At that moment, inside the collapsed half of Green Summit Mountain, the teleportation formation covered by gravel finally lit up with a dazzling white light. End of chapter. Chapter 2966. Swoosh. A blinding white light lit up the night sky. Two lofty figures, wrapped in white light, dashed out of the ruins and came to the night sky. They were two Sir God experts. One of them was a middle-aged man in crimson armor with dragon horns on his forehead. He was 30 feet tall and was as tall as a tower. He was surrounded by crimson fire, which showed his valiance and dominance. The other person was in a purple robe. His skin was as black as charcoal, and his body was as thin as firewood. He was in a loose purple robe that looked like a bamboo pole holding up his robe. He looked extremely strange. However, he was surrounded by purple thunderbolts, and his aura was mysterious. The two Sir Gods were from Highland County, and they were Sir Godhei Yan's helpers. When they arrived at Green Summit Mountain, the two of them stood in the night sky and looked down at the battlefield. They saw that more than half of Green Summit Mountain had collapsed and all the buildings were destroyed. All the disciples and guards were dead. The two of them were shocked. Gosh, how did this happen? There was a problem with the teleportation formation. We were only late by a few breaths. How did it become like this? The two Sir Gods were shocked and in disbelief. The North Plains branch was more powerful than Highland County, and it had a monarch upper divine array to protect it. Even if a high-level Sir God had attacked, it would not have fallen so quickly. Moreover, the two of them knew that Sir God He Yin was guarding the place. With Sir God He Yin around, it would not have been defeated. When Green Summit Mountain collapsed, the teleportation formation was affected and more than half of it was damaged. Luckily, the formation could still be used. However, the process was slow and it took a few breaths' time. The two Sir Gods did not expect that Green Summit Mountain would be destroyed in such a tragic manner just by delaying for a short period of time. Thinking of Sir God He Yin, the two of them looked up at the sky again. They saw that Sir God He Yin was still fighting with Ji Tianxing. Ji Tianxing was still the 10,000 feet tall god of war in golden armor, and he looked holy and mighty. Sir God He Yin was in a sorry state. He was covered in wounds, and his aura was chaotic and irritable. It was to the extent that when he was beaten back by Ji Tianxing, he had no choice but to use his ultimate secret technique. Black smoke gushed out of his body, and his body turned into a pitch-black divine statue that was thousands of feet tall. This statue had 2 heads and 8 arms. It looked like a spider and was surrounded by black flames of death. He waved his arms with all his might, shooting out pitch-black blades of death, attacking Ji Tianxing fiercely. The 2 God Devourer swords had also expanded to a length of 10,000 feet. They danced in the sky, waiting for an opportunity to assassinate Ji Tianxing. However, the sky was filled with divine, 5-colored giant swords, desperately trying to strangle him. All of his attacks were neutralized by the giant divine sword. Ji Tianxing swung the sword of burial of heaven and executed all kinds of sword Dao divine arts, beating him until he screamed and retreated continuously. After seeing the situation clearly, the 2 Sir Gods were filled with shock. Their expressions changed again. Who is that guy? How is he so powerful that he can force Monarch God He Yin to retreat? God Monarch Black Flame is a high-level God Monarch. That person is even stronger, so he must also be a high-level God Monarch. However, which high-level God Monarch in the entire Bloodfire Divine Kingdom looks like that? The 2 Sir Gods frowned and pondered hard. Who exactly was the golden armored god of war? However, they couldn't recognize him no matter how hard they searched their memories. At that moment, Monarch God He Yin was sent flying by Ji Tianxing's sword. Black smoke spurted out of his body, and his injuries were even more serious. Seeing that the 2 Sir Gods were still in a daze, he shouted anxiously, "What are you waiting for? Come and help me kill him." The 2 Sir Gods came back to their senses and hurriedly took out their divine weapons, attacking Ji Tianxing from all sides. Although the 2 of them were middle-level Sir Gods, in terms of strength and status, they were lower than Monarch God He Yin. However, Ji Tianxing noticed that Monarch God He Yin didn't seem to be their superior. There was no sense of command in his words and actions. There seemed to be more of cooperation and alliance between the 3 of them. Ji Tianxing paid more attention and couldn't help but think, with the strength of these 2 Sir Gods, they should be elders in the Blood Sword sect. However, these 2 aren't among the 3 surviving elders of the Blood Sword sect. It seems that these 2 aren't from the Blood Sword sect. They might be from other sections. Surrounded by 3 Sir Gods, the pressure on Ji Tianxing increased greatly. However, he wasn't worried. He methodically defended and counterattacked. With the support of the Heaven-Mending Pearl and the 5 Elements World, he had inexhaustible divine power. He used all kinds of divine abilities and ultimate skills to fight the 3 Sir Gods without falling into a disadvantageous position. Moreover, the Heaven-Punishing Sword formation was also operating to kill the 3 Sir Gods. Ji Tianxing was in an invincible position. He just needed some time to kill the 3 Sir Gods one by one. Soon, another 100 breaths of time passed. With the help of the 2 Sir Gods, the pressure on monarch God He Yin decreased by a lot. While besieging Ji Tianxing, he also found some time to take a breather and secretly take a divine pill to replenish his divine power. However, the hope that had just been ignited in his heart was once again extinguished. He originally thought that with the help of the 2 mid-level Sir Gods, he would definitely be able to kill Ji Tianxing successfully. However, reality proved that he had been too optimistic. The 2 sides fought for 100 breaths of time and exchanged hundreds of blows. He and the 2 Sir Gods didn't gain any advantage and couldn't cause any substantial damage to Ji Tianxing. Instead, he and the 2 Sir Gods were injured by Ji Tianxing's divine abilities and were exhausted from defending against the sword formation. As time passed, the 3's injuries worsened and their strength weakened. However, Ji Tianxing was still as vigorous as before, and his divine power was vigorous and overbearing. Even the heaven-punishing sword formation didn't show any signs of weakening. Monarch God He Yan's heart sank as he gradually realized that something was wrong. At this moment, the 2 mid-level Sir Gods were sent flying by the dragon elephant divine fist and smashed into the ruins while vomiting blood. Similar situations had happened more than 10 times before, and no one was surprised. However, this time, the situation was a little strange. The 2 Sir Gods were lying in the ruins, and their bodies were twitching as they cried out in pain. Monarch God He Yin turned his head and saw dark blue smoke coming out of the 2 Sir Gods' bodies. The wounds on their bodies were spewing out a large amount of green liquid, and it corroded the rocks until white smoke came out. The scariest thing was that their wounds were rapidly rotting and spreading, turning into terrifying bloody holes. Monarch God He Yin was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He exclaimed in shock, "What poison? Are you poisoned?" Without a doubt, the 2 Sir Gods were in such a miserable state because they had been poisoned. Their blood vessels were corroded, and their bodies were rapidly rotting. Their divine power was rapidly weakening, and their fighting power was dropping drastically. However, Monarch God He Yin couldn't figure out when the 2 Sir Gods had been poisoned. Just as he was pondering, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his chest. He lowered his head and saw that the wounds on his chest were also spewing out dark green liquid. The wounds were rotting rapidly, and the flesh turned into black ash that scattered into the night sky. Under his astonished gaze, the wounds expanded rapidly and turned into huge bloody holes. Moreover, his injured arms were also rotting rapidly, and dark blue smoke was coming out of them. "I was poisoned too. There are 2 more chapters to go. Please understand." End of chapter. Chapter 2967. Sir God He Yin felt chills all over his body, and his heart trembled. It was not because of the pain caused by the poison. It was because of fear. No matter how strong Ji Tianxing was, or how magical the sword formation was, Sir God He Yin would only feel helpless and angry. But Sir God He Yin and the 2 Sir Gods did not know and were silently poisoned. Until now, he still did not know what had happened. He did not know when he had been poisoned. This was too horrifying. Ji Tianxing's use of poison had reached the acme of perfection. How could such an enemy not be terrifying? Puff! Sir God He Yin could no longer endure the pain in his organs. He opened his mouth and spat out 2 mouthfuls of black blood. He could clearly feel that more than half of his blood vessels had been corroded by the poison, and he could hardly use his divine power. Even his divine soul seemed to have been corroded by the poison. His consciousness was blurry and dizzy. In such a situation, if he continued to maintain his divine statue form, it would only cause the poison to wreak havoc and his strength to weaken faster. So, he quickly returned to his original form. Swoosh! There was a flash of black light. Sir God He Yin returned to his original form and became a skinny purple-haired elder. However, his appearance was too horrible to look at. His body was full of holes, and he did not look human. Hundreds of wounds were worsening and expanding. Green liquid and dark blue smoke kept pouring out. He quickly took out a few elixirs to heal his wounds and replenish his divine power. He released divine light from his hands and swallowed them. Eating the elixirs was too slow. He used his divine power to absorb the elixirs and heal his wounds quickly. Not only that, he also took out a few golden talismans and stuck them on a few critical wounds to prevent them from worsening. After doing all this, he felt more at ease. He stared at Ji Tianqing ferociously and roared with a hoarse voice. "Bastard, when did you poison us? I am a high-level Sir God, and I am immune to all poisons. What kind of poison is this? How could it invade my divine body without me noticing?" If it did not figure out the problem, Sir God Yin would be traumatized. Ji Tianqing looked at him calmly and said slowly, "That's right. A high-level Sir God like you is immune to all poisons. So, from the moment we started fighting, this monarch had already been using poison. This kind of poison was not violent, it would not take effect immediately, and it would not be fatal on the spot. However, it was most mysterious, silent, and undetectable. Furthermore, I've fused the poison into my Sword Dao divine arts and sword formation. Every time you're injured, a trace of poison will enter your body. It's just a tiny bit of poison. Its power isn't obvious, so of course you wouldn't notice it. However, when you suffer too many injuries and the poison accumulates to a certain extent, it will erupt like a volcano and become difficult to control." Ji Tianqing didn't hide anything. He explained the process and method of using the poison. However, Monarch Godhe Yin still didn't know what kind of poison he had used. Since he didn't know what kind of poison it was, there was no way to neutralize it. Emperor Godhe Yin was shocked and angry. He was even more afraid of Ji Tianqing. "You vicious bastard. You are truly sinister to the extreme." It was one thing for him to be strong, but he was also so sinister, vicious, and scheming. This was what was truly terrifying. Sir Godhe Yin had to admit that he had already lost the battle. The destruction of the Northern Plains branch was already a foregone conclusion. More importantly, it was unknown whether he and the other two Sir Gods would be able to keep their lives. Ji Tianqing said with an indifferent expression, "Bloodsword sect has a blood feud with me. Since we're going to fight to the death, what's the point of talking about righteousness? Of course, we're going to do anything. Isn't that so?" Emperor Godhe Yin choked and couldn't refute. That's right, Bloodsword sect did the same. If they could use the same poison to silently kill Ji Tianqing, Bloodsword sect wouldn't hesitate to do the same. Therefore, he couldn't blame the other party for being too despicable. He could only blame himself for being too useless. "Very good. Kid, you're ruthless and vicious enough. I'll remember you forever. I admit defeat in tonight's battle. However, don't be complacent. I'll return the favor tenfold and tear you to pieces very soon." Emperor Godhe Yin temporarily suppressed the poison and his injuries. He gnashed his teeth and left behind a few ruthless words. Then, he brought the two howling Sir Gods and flew towards the teleportation formation in the ruins. He didn't think of cracking the Heaven Punishment Sword formation and escaping. It was too stupid and might not succeed. Moreover, it was a waste of time. Escaping to Highland County through the teleportation formation was the wisest choice. Swish! Emperor Godhe Yin stretched out his hands and picked up the two heavily injured Sir Gods. He flew towards the ruins as fast as lightning. Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. "Things have already come to this, and you still want to escape? You're too naive." As he spoke, he used his divine thought to control the sword formation to intercept Emperor Godhe Yin. Swish! 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 Thousands of giant divine swords immediately sealed off the ruins and surrounded the teleportation formation. Emperor Godhe Yin's path was blocked, and he had to use his divine ability to block the attack of the giant divine swords. He took out 4 dark golden runes and formed a law shield to protect himself. Bang! 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 Thousands of giant divine swords stabbed the law shield one after another, creating earth-shattering noises. The law shield was distorted and deformed by the assassination. Unable to bear the burden, it exploded with a bang. Emperor Godhe Yin retreated and was injured by the sword lights. Black blood splattered everywhere. He had no choice but to take out a purple-gold cloak to cover himself. The ancient purple-gold cloak was an upper-class monarch-level divine weapon from ancient times, and it had many functions. Although it was old and worn, many of its functions had been destroyed. However, its strong defense was still there, and it could block the attack of the giant swords. Bang! 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 Muffled sounds rang out incessantly, but the purple-gold cloak remained unscathed and undamaged. Under the protection of the purple-gold cloak, Emperor Godhei Yin dashed towards the ruins and got closer to the teleportation formation. However, Emperor Godhei Yin had the protection of the cloak, and he could block the attack of the sword lights. The two middle-level divine lords, who were heavily injured and on the verge of fainting, were tragically killed by the sword light. Their divine bodies were cut into pieces. After their bodies were destroyed, the two remaining godheads were covered with a layer of dark blue light. It was obvious that their godheads were corroded by the poison. Emperor Godhei Yin was shocked and furious. He quickly protected the two godheads and dashed towards the teleportation formation. Damn it! Even if their bodies are destroyed, I have to protect their godheads. If they were to die here, it would be hard to explain when I return. With this thought flashing through his mind, Sir God Blackflame worked even harder. He tried his best to escape. Under the protection of the purple-gold cloak, he passed through the attack of the sword lights and reached the vicinity of the teleportation formation. He was about to escape successfully. Just then, Ji Tianqing controlled thousands of giant swords and released dozens of nomological powers. He attacked the teleportation formation at all costs. Boom! 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 Countless sword lights rained down and hit the teleportation formation like meteors. There was an explosion of rainbow divine light and a loud bang. The already dilapidated teleportation grand array was blasted into pieces on the spot. It was completely destroyed. End of chapter. Chapter 2968. Sir Godhei Yin was dumbfounded. He had sacrificed so much and almost used all his strength to get close to the teleportation array. He was about to enter the array and escape the battlefield. In the end, Ji Tianqing destroyed the teleportation array at the cost of thousands of huge swords. When the array was destroyed, the thousands of huge swords were also destroyed. However, there were still 9,000 huge swords in the heaven-destroying sword array. Sir Godhei Yin's hope of escaping was extinguished. For a moment, he stood in the ruins, filled with despair and despair. Why? Why is it like this? 15 minutes ago, he had been hiding in the green summit mountain, waiting for the disciples of the Bloodblade sect to die. At that time, he was full of confidence and complacency. How confident was he? But now, he had fallen from heaven to hell. Not only had the green summit mountain been destroyed, but he had also fallen. He could not accept this result. He could not understand how Ji Tianqing could be so powerful and ruthless. He turned to look at Ji Tianqing and roared with a twisted face and resentful eyes. Tianqing, do you really want to kill all of us and not leave any leeway? Ji Tianqing stood in the night sky and looked down at him indifferently. He said coldly, "Before the battle, I said that no matter how many people from the Bloodsword sect come, I will kill all of them. Since we are like fire and water and must fight to the death, you must die." Sir Godhei Yin trembled with anger. After hesitating for a moment, he could not hold back and roared, "Do you know that if you really kill us, there will be no chance of reconciliation? You will offend two sects at the same time and will fight to the death. From now on, you will be enemies with half of the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. There will be no place for you in this world." Ji Tianqing raised his eyebrows and asked, "So, you admit that the two Sir Gods are not from the Bloodsword sect? Tell me, which sect are they from?" Sir Godhei Yin thought that he was afraid and felt a little comforted. "Ah, this is a secret between our sect and that sect. How can I tell you? If you know what's good for you, then let me go. That way, you'll only offend the Bloodsword sect and won't form a death grudge with that sect." Ji Tianqing revealed a playful smile as he jokingly said, "In your mind, that sect is extremely powerful, far surpassing the Bloodsword sect, right? Because of this, you treated that sect as a life-saving talisman. Are you hoping that this monarch will refrain from shooting at the rat for fear of breaking the vases and let you live? Sir Godhei Yin didn't defend himself. It was a silent agreement. Ji Tianxing continued. Although there are 6 great sects in the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom, there are differences in strength between them. The Bloodsword sect and the Bloodblade sect were both ranked at the bottom. Now that a battle had broken out, it would be no different from a chicken pecking at each other. Even the evil Blood Palace is more powerful than you. Therefore, the 2 Sir Gods must have come from the first 3 sections. Sir Godhei increased his eyebrows and held back his urge to speak. Because Ji Tianxing's analysis was completely correct. Ji Tianxing thought to himself, the top 3 sects are the 4 Symbols sect, the Heavenly sect, and the 1000 Ji sect. Ning Qinggang once vaguely reminded me that the 4 Symbols sect seems to support the 3rd prince. If I run into trouble, I can ask the 4 Symbols sect for help. Since the 4 Symbols sect is excluded, only the 1000 Ji sect and the Heavenly sect are left. Thinking of this, he had a general answer in his heart. If I'm not wrong, the 2 Sir Gods must have come from the Heavenly sect, which is ranked first and the strongest sect, right? Ji Tianxing said playfully as he looked at Sir Godhei Yin with a faint smile. Sir Godhei Yin's body suddenly trembled as a look of shock flashed across his eyes. He couldn't believe it. In order to save his life, he only mentioned that the 2 Sir Gods were from another powerful sect. He used this to threaten Ji Tianxing not to offend the 2 sects at the same time. However, Ji Tianxing guessed the answer with this clue. Such thoughts and wisdom were terrifying. Sir Godhei Yin was silent for a while and said seriously, Tianxing, I have to admit that your power, means, and scheming have impressed me. Since you're so smart, you should know how to choose. I'm not afraid to tell you that the sect ranked first is only the tip of the iceberg. The real power behind it is beyond everyone's imagination. Even the royal family of the Holy Kingdom is afraid of it and doesn't dare to provoke it. As for the rest, you can figure out yourself. When Sir Godhei Yin said that, he didn't mean to show off. There was no other reason but because he didn't dare to, because he vaguely knew some inside information and he knew how powerful the sect was. Hence, when he mentioned the sect, he had to maintain a respectful attitude, and he didn't even dare to assume the power of the sect. After Ji Tianxing heard what Sir Godhei Yin had said, he frowned and thought for a while. Seeing that, Sir Godhei Yin was more confident and confident. However, to his surprise, Ji Tianxing actually refused. He shook his head and sneered. Sir Godhei Yin, you don't know my nature. I only follow my heart and do whatever I want. I've never been threatened, not by the royal family of the Holy Kingdom, not by the 6 sects. And you don't have the right to threaten me. As he spoke, he slowly extended his right palm, and there was a mysterious golden light accumulating in his palm. If I want you to die, you have to die. No one can save you. Sir Godhei Yin's face suddenly changed, and he roared in disbelief. Be ****. You're digging your own grave by being so stubborn. Even if you're a high-level Sir God, you'll die without a burial place. Are you crazy? Sir Godhei Yin was completely flustered. He couldn't imagine how arrogant and crazy Ji Tianxing was. He had made it so clear. Why wasn't Ji Tianxing afraid? However, the question was destined to never be answered. Swoosh! Ji Tianxing waved his right palm, and there was boundless sacred golden light. It turned into a sword that could split heaven and earth and slashed at Sir Godhei Yin. This golden light was very special and mysterious. It didn't belong to any divine power that Sir Godhei Yin knew of, but it had supreme divine power that was superior to all other divine powers. The golden light was condensed and it was illusory. Time, space, and other divine powers couldn't stop it. Sir Godhei Yin was terrified and his soul almost left his body. He performed a forbidden unique skill with all his might and took out all his divine weapons and treasures to block the attack of the golden sword. But it was all in vain. The sacred golden sword pierced through the night sky as though it was nothing. It passed through the divine skill lights and a few divine weapons and hit Sir Godhei Yin. Swoosh! There was no dull explosion, but only a soft sound that sounded like space being torn apart. Sir Godhei Yan's divine body was smashed into pieces by the sacred golden sword. It turned into billions of dust and dissipated in the night sky. Even his grayish-black divinity was split into two by the sacred golden sword. Then, the dazzling and sacred golden sword light disappeared in the night sky. The universe became dark again, and everything returned to tranquility. Chapter 2969. Even though God Lord Black Flame had been famous for over 10,000 years and was a high God Lord, even before his death, he didn't know that the divine golden sword that killed him was called World. That's right, it was the power of the five elements world. A divine sword condensed from the light of the world could naturally surpass all kinds of divine power. The battle was over. The dust and divine light that covered the sky gradually dissipated. Ji Tianxing waved his hand and removed the heavenly punishing sword array, causing all 9,000 sword lights to disappear. Green Summit Mountain had been completely destroyed, turning into a 300-meter-tall ruin filled with dirt and rubble. Around the ruin, several hundred miles of land was filled with deep pits and ravines. After this battle, the Northern Plains branch had been completely destroyed. More than 20 disciples of the Blood Sword sect, 3 deacons, and the Right Protector, God Lord Black Flame, had died on the spot. More than 2,000 vassals and several hundred guards of the Blood Sword sect had also been slaughtered. Such a shocking accomplishment was enough to shake the entire Blood Flame divine kingdom. Ever since the Blood Blade sect had declared war on the Blood Sword sect, they had attacked several branches, but they had never achieved such a valiant feat. Ji Tianxing didn't feel happy or proud, and his reaction was very calm. It was as if he had done something insignificant, and all of this was to be expected. However, the fourth elder of the Bloodblade sect and the 40 or so disciples who had survived had personally witnessed the entire process. Now, they were all shocked to the extreme and fell into a daze for a long time. After a long time, the fourth elder and the disciples came back to their senses. They all flew toward Ji Tianxing in the night sky, letting out cries of disbelief. This is too inconceivable. This is simply a miracle. In just 45 minutes, he flattened the Northern Plains branch, killed more than 3,000 people, and even killed the left protector of the Bloodsword sect. This is the most glorious result our sect has achieved since the start of the war against the Bloodsword sect. Young Master Tianxing is mighty and domineering. This disciple's respect for you is like a surging river. With young Master Tianxing's help, our sect is like a tiger that has grown wings. This is a great blessing. No wonder young Master Tianxing is so confident and lawless. It's because he has the qualifications. Yes, an expert like young noble Tianxing is enough to look down on the entire Bloodflame divine kingdom. No matter how arrogant he is, it's only natural. Previously, we had some misunderstandings about young Master Tianxing. That was because we were blind and ignorant. Fortunately, young Master Tianxing didn't bicker with us. Otherwise, we would have turned into ashes long ago. Many disciples of the Bloodblade sect believed in the strong. If Ji Tianxing did not have much strength, but was very arrogant, then he would be the target of public criticism. However, his strength was unparalleled, and everyone had seen it with their own eyes. No matter how arrogant and overbearing he was, it was only natural. That was confidence. Soon, the fourth elder and his disciples arrived near Ji Tianxing. Everyone bowed in unison, expressing their heartfelt gratitude and respect to him. Young Master Tianxing, thank you for saving us. We owe you our lives. From now on, I will follow your lead, and I am willing to be your lackey. The fourth elder completely let go of his pride and dignity. While thanking Ji Tianxing, he didn't forget to flatter him. Many of the elite disciples also praised Ji Tianxing, expressing their warmest respect and gratitude. There were even more than a dozen martial arts disciples who had become Ji Tianxing's loyal fans. They supported him unconditionally, the most brainless fans. Originally, tonight, the fourth elder and the Bloodblade sect's disciples were on mission. Ji Tianqing was only there to supervise the battle. However, the situation was full of twists and turns. In the end, the fourth elder and his disciples were hiding on the side. Ji Tianqing bravely stepped forward at the critical moment and not only saved everyone, he also turned the tide. He single-handedly flattened the Northern Plains branch and killed all the enemies. This was too dramatic. The psychological impact it brought to the fourth elder and his disciples was unforgettable. Everyone was excited for a long time, unable to calm down. In the end, Ji Tianqing raised his hand and everyone quieted down. Everyone be quiet. This place is not far from Northern Plains City. I'm afraid the city has already sensed the battle just now. Clean up the battlefield as soon as possible. Quickly evacuate this place and report back to Bloodblade sect. All the disciples nodded in unison and acknowledged the order. Now, everyone was in awe of him and obeyed his orders without hesitation. The fourth elder asked with concern, "Young Master Tianqing, where are you going? Are you not going to evacuate with us?" Ji Tianqing said expressionlessly, "My whereabouts have nothing to do with you." The fourth elder quickly apologized and said with an embarrassed smile, "I was rude. Please forgive me." Ji Tianqing did not say anything else. He turned and flew into the night sky, disappearing into the southern horizon. The fourth elder and the others watched him leave. After that, everyone began to clean up the battlefield, searching for treasures and resources in the ruins. Unfortunately, many of the treasures were hidden deep in the mountain. After Green Summit Mountain was destroyed, those treasures were also destroyed. Large amounts of resources and treasures were buried deep in the ground and would be difficult to clean up in a short period of time. Helpless, the fourth elder and the disciples of Bloodblade sect could only scrounge up a portion of the treasures. When they sensed that a large number of guards had been dispatched from Northern Plains City, they quickly retreated. Not long after, the guard commander of Northern Plains City led a large number of guards to Green Summit Mountain. Everyone only saw that the originally bustling Qingfeng Mountain had already turned into a scene of desolation and devastation. They searched the surroundings but did not see a single living person. Naturally, they did not know who destroyed Green Summit Mountain. The matter of Bloodblade sect declaring war on Bloodsword sect was a tacit understanding among the upper echelons of Bloodflame Divine Kingdom. However, the two great sects were very tactful and would not make a big fuss about it. They also could not let the garrisons and guards of the various counties catch them in the act. In the territory of Bloodflame Divine Kingdom, they had to take care of the face of the country's ruler and settle any grudges in secret. Otherwise, once the news spread, it would cause chaos among the people. Wouldn't that be slapping the ruler's face and challenging the laws of Divine Kingdom? After leaving Green Summit Mountain, the fourth elder and the elite disciples rode the black mist and quickly retreated. On the way, they were unable to suppress the excitement in their hearts and whispered to each other, "When I heard that young Master Tianqing defeated left emissary Jean in one move, I scoffed. Now, it seems that it must be true. That's right. Young Master Tianqing is so strong that he even killed God Monarch Blackflame. It's normal for him to defeat left emissary Jean. Tonight, Bloodsword sect set up an ambush and tricked us. If not for young Master Tianqing, we would have been buried in Green Summit Mountain. So, it's all thanks to young Master Tianqing that we were able to leave alive and make such great contributions. Young Master Tianqing is my idol. If anyone dares to criticize him in the future, I won't let them off." When we return to the branch and report what happened tonight to the sect, the elders and envoys will definitely be shocked, right? Chapter 2970. Seeing the disciples chatting excitedly, the fourth elder couldn't help but worry. "Everyone, while you're happy, don't let your guard down. We still haven't returned to the branch." As long as they were traveling, they were still in danger. Anything could happen. Only when they returned to the branch could they settle down, rest, and celebrate. The Bloodblade sect also had a branch in Northern Plains County, in a city several million li away. They had to retreat to that branch to report the results of the battle and treat their injuries. After a few days of rest, if the sect didn't issue any new orders, they would use the teleportation array to leave Northern Plains County and return to the sect. In truth, Ji Tianxing had wrongly accused the Bloodblade sect. The Bloodsword sect would set up teleportation arrays in Green Peak Mountain to make it easier for the sect's experts to travel. The Bloodblade sect would naturally do the same. Within the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom, the 9 important branches all had teleportation arrays. In the event of an emergency, they could provide reinforcements or retreat as quickly as possible. It wasn't just the large sects that would do this. Even the Bloodflame Divine Kingdom would follow suit. The county lord estates of the various counties were all connected by teleportation arrays that led to the vicinity of the royal capital. In this way, the king's decrees and orders could be spread to the various counties as quickly as possible. However, only high god lords could set up teleportation arrays that could cross tens of millions of li, and they were also extremely expensive. Each activation would consume nearly 1 billion godstones. Thus, unless absolutely necessary, no one would rashly activate a teleportation array. This thing was truly too extravagant. Under the pitch-black curtain of night, the black dragon carried Ji Tianxing and sped through the sky, heading straight for the south. Ji Tianxing sat on the dragon's back with his eyes closed, silently pondering God Lord Black Flame's words. Not long ago, he had killed 2 elders of the Bloodsword sect and the left protector, Lord Kenshin. Tonight, he had killed God Lord Black Flame. The left and right protectors of the Bloodsword sect had all died, leaving only the 3 elders and the sect master and vice sect master. It was truly a case of withering experts and greatly weakening the sect. To Ji Tianxing, the Bloodsword sect was no longer a concern. The 3 elders were all middle god lords and could be easily killed. The sect master and vice sect master were both high-level Sir Gods, and their abilities were slightly stronger than Sir God Black Flame. With Ji Tianxing's strength and methods, he could kill them one by one. It was just a little troublesome. Of course, his strength had improved again in the past month. Presently, he already reached late-stage 2nd-level Divine Lord and was not far from 3rd-level Divine Lord Realm. Once he broke through to the 3rd level of the Divine Lord Realm, he would have a much easier time dealing with the 2 sect masters of the Bloodsword sect. The Bloodsword sect was nothing to fear. Ji Tianxing's target was the number 1 sect, Hetian sect. He had previously investigated the information of the 6 major sections. The Hetian sect was indeed the strongest among the 6 great sects in terms of power and number of experts. Moreover, this sect was also the most secretive and low-key. He didn't rely on any of the princes of the Bloodflame Divine Country, so he had a high status and didn't get involved. Ji Tianxing had once thought that since the Hetian sect was so powerful, could it be related to the monarch? This idea was immediately rejected by him. The monarch controlled the entire Divine Country, so why would he need to raise a sect? However, God Lord Black Flame swore that the Hetian sect's strength was only the tip of the iceberg. Their true strength and foundation were far beyond anyone's imagination. It was very terrifying. This was very thought-provoking. Since it has nothing to do with the monarch and is the number 1 sect in the Divine Country, they can still maintain an uninvolved attitude. Combined with God Lord Black Flame's reaction, could it be that the Bloodflame Divine Country's Hetian sect is just a branch of the Hetian sect? The Hetian sect has also established branches in the other Divine Countries? Or even the real headquarters of the Hetian sect is in the Great Yin Empire? Ji Tianxing pondered for a moment before this bold idea appeared in his mind. Although this guess was a little absurd, if he said it out loud, no one would believe him. However, he knew that the more absurd something was, the closer it was to the truth. This is just my guess. It's hard to confirm whether it's true or not. It seems that I have to find a reliable person to inquire about it. If the Hetian sect foundation is really as I guessed, then I still have to be careful. Although he was very confident and domineering in his actions. However, he would not take risks without preparation. What he needed was to devise strategies and predict the future. Everything was under his control. After thinking for a while, Ji Tianxing took out a communication jade slip and sent a secret letter to left emissary Jean. Not only did he describe the process of what happened tonight in the secret letter, he also inquired about the Hetion sect. Originally, Ji Tianxing and left emissary Jean only had a cooperative relationship. They were not very close and trusted each other. The people he trusted the most were Qi Tianlong and Ning Qinggang. However, he believed that aristocratic families like Qi Tianlong and Ning Qinggang might not know the details of the Hetion sect. Left emissary Jean would know more inside information. After waiting for half an hour, a spiritual light flew from the sky and landed in front of Ji Tianxing. When the spiritual light dissipated, a jade slip appeared. It was from left emissary Jean. Ji Tianxing held the jade slip and read the contents with his divine sense. It was not words, but left emissary Jin's words. Oh my God, I thought that the attack on the Northern Plains branch would be very covert and no one would know. I did not expect the people of the Bloodsword sect to set up an ambush in advance. Fortunately, young Master Tianxing went with us. Otherwise, the fourth elder and those disciples would have been buried in the Green Summit Mountain. Young Master Tianxing's strength and methods are really impressive. You killed God Monarch He Yin. You also got rid of a general of the Bloodsword sect. Our plan will definitely succeed. With such an outstanding contribution, this monarch will definitely report it to the sect master and reward you according to your merits. Left emissary Jin's tone was very excited. It could be heard that he was a little emotional. After all, tonight's matter was full of twists and turns. Even just listening to it was very exciting. After talking about business, left emissary Jean said in a low voice, "Young Master Tianxing, you suspect that the two god monarchs invited by God Monarch He Yin are from the Hetion sect? This should not be. The Hetion sect has always stayed out of things and would not intervene in the disputes of other sects. Young Master Tianxing, do not believe God Monarch He Yin's one-sided story. Perhaps he deliberately made it up to save his life. Although I do not know much about the Hetion sect, I believe that with the Hetion sect's status and strength, it is impossible for them to help the Bloodsword sect. Apart from this, there is nothing else in the Jade Slip." Left emissary Jean was not clear about the details of the Hetion sect. In fact, he did not know as much as God Monarch He Yin. Ji Tianxing sighed and put away the Jade Slip. He took out the Godhead fragments of God Monarch He Yin, the 3 Bloodsword sect deacons, and the 2 mid-level God Monarchs. Since I can't get anything out of them, I will extract their divine soul memories to find the answer. Ji Tianxing picked out the Godheads of God Monarch He Yin and the 2 mid-level God Monarchs and began to refine them, extracting their divine soul memories. Chapter 2971. The first thing Ji Tianxing refined was the Godhead fragment of God Monarch Black Flame. During the previous battle, Ji Tianxing had discovered that this person had grasped over 100 kinds of laws. As expected, God Monarch Black Flame's Godhead had condensed over 90 kinds of laws. This number was extremely shocking, far surpassing the number of Middle God Monarchs. One could imagine that God Monarch Black Flame had cultivated for at least 20,000 years to have such a rich foundation. Ji Tianxing first refined the memories of this person's God soul before taking away his divine Tao laws. After 6 hours, he finally absorbed God Monarch Black Flame's memories. Unfortunately, God Monarch Black Flame's Godhead had been poisoned and his God Soul's memories were damaged and incomplete. Ji Tianxing picked out the important information and memorized it. Through these important memories, he gained a better understanding of the Bloodsword sect. Although he didn't know everything, he knew at least 80% of it, including many secrets. After all, God Monarch Black Flame was one of the 4 elders of the Bloodsword sect. He had witnessed the establishment, rise, and prosperity of the Bloodsword sect. Ji Tianxing now knew that the Bloodsword sect was extremely ambitious, and their true strength was far beyond what it appeared to be. Moreover, the 2 God Monarchs that had come from the Highland County were indeed from the Whole Heaven sect. Those 2 God Monarchs had originally helped the Bloodsword sect defend the Highland County branch against the attack of the Bloodblade sect. Unfortunately, God Monarch Black Flame didn't know the identity of those 2 God Monarchs in the Whole Heaven sect. He also didn't know why the whole Heaven sect, which had a transcendent status, would help the Blood Sword sect. He had asked the two sect masters about this matter, but the two sect masters kept it a secret and didn't answer his questions. They only vaguely reminded him that this matter was decided by important people and that the Blood Sword sect only needed to follow orders. God Monarch Black Flame was also a smart person and guessed the reason, so he didn't ask again. It really is the whole Heaven sect. The prince behind the Blood Sword sect really has some means to be able to ask the whole Heaven sect for help. Even God Monarch Black Flame doesn't know the inside story. It seems this matter is extremely secretive. Why would the whole Heaven sect help that prince? What conditions could that prince offer that would tempt the whole Heaven sect? Ji Tianxing frowned and pondered for a long time, but he couldn't figure out the answer. Now that things had developed to this point, he had also experienced so many bloody battles. With Ning Qinggang and left emissary Jin's advice, he was very clear about the situation in the Blood Flame Divine Kingdom. Currently, the three princes vying for the throne had all roped in the 6 great sections. The third prince had the support of the Four Symbols sect, and the second prince had subdued the evil Blood Palace and many other sects, as well as many border officials and nobles. As for the most low-key fifth prince, he was the backer of the Blood Sword sect. At first, Ji Tianxing did not take the fifth prince seriously. This person was the youngest and had the weakest foundation. Even the sect he had roped in was the 5th-ranked Blood Sword sect, which was only slightly stronger than the Bloodblade sect. However, the appearance of Hitian's sect changed Ji Tianxing's view. He vaguely felt that the most low-key 5th prince could be the most ambitious and shrewd person. Otherwise, how could he have asked the Hitian sect for help? Ji Tianxing thought hard to no avail, so he put this matter aside and began to refine the divine Tao laws of God Monarch Yin. This time, the cultivation took even longer. Ji Tianxing had cultivated 90% of the divine Tao laws that God Monarch Yin had mastered. There were only 12 divine Tao laws that he had not cultivated before. Therefore, he took out the 9 Heavens 10 Absolutes Pagoda and entered the distorted space-time to cultivate. It took him a total of 20 days to cultivate the 12 divine Tao laws. At this point, the number of divine Tao laws that Ji Tianxing had mastered had increased to 162. He did not leave the distorted space-time. Instead, he took out the godheads of 2 middle-level divine lords and began to refine them. These 2 middle-level divine lords were both in the 6th heaven realm. The number of divine Tao laws that they had condensed was about 70, which was considered relatively strong. Ji Tianxing first refined the memories of their divine souls and read the important information from them. After a day, he figured out the situation. These 2 middle-level divine lords were indeed from the Hitian sect. However, they were not deacons or elders of the Hitian sect. They were only guests in name and had the same status as elders. Therefore, the 2 guests did not know much about the secrets of the Hitian sect. They only knew that the Hitian sect was near the capital in the Blood Flame County's 6 Directions mountain range. The Hitian sect had a strong foundation and was very powerful. Its status was very high. Even the members of the royal family had to be courteous to the Hitian sect. As guests of the Hitian sect, they were respected wherever they went and were respected and flattered by others. For so many years, the 2 of them had abused their power and enjoyed themselves to their heart's content, wantonly amassing wealth and seizing treasures, living a very carefree life. They had only done a few things that really required them to put their lives on the line. After all, ordinary forces did not dare to provoke the Hitian sect. What danger could there be? Even this time, when they were ordered to help the Blood Sword sect, the 2 guests regarded it as a good job and gladly accepted it. In their opinion, the Blood Sword sect would definitely be respectful to them and give them gifts to curry favor. The things that really needed to be fought would be left to the Blood Sword sect. The 2 of them were just going through the motions to represent the Hitian sect's attitude, and that was it. However, the 2 guests did not expect that the result would be the opposite. Their fates would be so miserable. They had been enjoying life in Highland County when they suddenly received a message from God Monarch Black Flame and rushed over to help. As soon as they arrived at Green Summit Mountain, They saw ruins everywhere, and that god Monarch Black Flame was also heavily injured. Not long after fighting, the two of them were poisoned and lost the ability to fight. Then, the two of them were killed by Ji Tianqing. What an unjust death! Ji Tianqing roughly combed through the memories of the two guests. He could not help but feel disappointed when he did not find the answer he wanted. It's a pity that the two guests' strength and status were not too high. They could not come into contact with the core secrets of the Hetion sect. They did not know how strong the Hetion sect was, nor did they know if the other divine kingdoms had branches. They did not even know why the Hetion sect interfered in the battle between the two sects and helped the Bloodsword sect. Ji Tianqing could only comfort himself. If he met the elders and protectors of the Hetion sect in the future, he might be able to find out some secrets. Putting this matter aside for the time being, he began to refine the divine Tao laws of the two guests. The two guests had refined more than 70 divine Tao laws, and most of them were duplicates. Ji Tianqing made a selection and only picked out 8 laws to cultivate. Therefore, he devoured their godheads and deprived them of the 8 divine Tao laws. This cultivation lasted for another half a month. When he successfully refined 8 divine Tao laws, the number of divine Tao laws he controlled had reached 170. At this time, he had already cultivated in the distorted space-time for more than 30 days. With the addition of 20 divine Tao laws and the godheads of the 3 divine monarchs, his strength had greatly increased. He had finally reached the peak of the 2nd stage and was about to break through to the 3rd stage. Therefore, he stayed in the distorted space-time and continued to cultivate in seclusion. Not only did he refine the godheads of the 3 Bloodsword sect deacons, he also consumed a large number of divine stones, divine pills, and divine crystals to rapidly increase his strength. End of chapter.